It didn't make that sound. There we go.
Good, it's recording. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Princeton Historic Preservation Commission, being held electronically via Zoom on August 15th, 2022 at 4 p.m. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place and agenda of this meeting has been noticed by transmitting a copy to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, Trentonian, and by filing with the Clerk of Princeton, who has posted it to the municipal website, www.princetonnj.gov/meetings. Pursuant to Executive Order 107, due to the state of emergency in New Jersey regarding COVID-19, notice during the declared state of emergency, all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Historic Preservation Commission will be held electronically via Zoom. Such notices have been placed on the official bulletin board at the Princeton Municipal Complex and on the Princeton website. Are you gonna do roll call, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Capizzoli,
I'm here.
Mr. Shore,
I'm here.
Ms. Satterfield,
Here.
Mr. Endersby,
I'm here too.
Mr. Shatskin,
Here.
Ms. Howard,
I'm here.
Mr. Pyle. We have a quorum.
Okay, thanks, everybody. First, Elizabeth, do you have any announcements?
I do not have any announcements, Madam Chair.
Great, okay. We have two sets of minutes. One from March 22nd, which is our special meeting that we had with the municipality about the Witherspoon Street improvements, and one for June 20th, last meeting. So as far as the March 22nd minutes go, I think there were changes. Does anyone have any further changes? And does someone want to make a motion to approve them?
I don't know if I was part of that meeting or not. I was in DR at that point and I missed one meeting because I didn't have electricity.
Let me look at the minutes for a second. It should state, yeah, it says you were there.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'll move that we approve the minutes now that I know
Okay.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. Okay. Is there a second? I think that was Shirley. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you. The second set of minutes is from our June meeting, and I know Roger had some minor changes, and Justin picked that up. Do you want me to read them, or Roger, you want to read the change you made?
I don't have it in front of me, but it
Oh.
essentially had to do with the direction of, I guess, the mountain brook was not clear in the minutes. I had asked whether the new course of the brook, because it had been flooded, had been taken into account. And the language to me made it sound like the stream was flowing backwards as opposed to just in a different course. And we just corrected that.
Right. So Justin got that. Does anyone else have changes to those minutes? If not, Roger, you want to move to approve those?
I move to approve.
Oh, thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thanks, Frida. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you. Got the minutes out of the way. Now we're going on to the resolution. This is for the Center of Theological, what is it?
Inquiry.
Center of
Inquiry.
Inquiry, right. Anyway, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thanks,
Sec-
David.
Second,
Oh, thank you. So been moved by David, seconded by Roger. All in favor of approving the resolution?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much. All right. Now we're gonna go into, this is Ed's territory. The municipality of Princeton versus Benjamin L. Gulick, litigation update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In 2002, just some brief background, HPC approved a restoration plan for the main house and about 12 outbuildings on the Gulick farm. I think it was Annabelle's group that did it, the Historic Building Architects LLC. A phenomenal plan and one that was presented and approved. In 2002, also, the old Princeton Township bought the rear part of the farm for $2.7 million. And if you look all the way in the back, and if you come down Herrontown, you see all the Christmas trees. That's the part that Princeton bought from the Gulicks. Of that 2.7 million that was paid to the Gulick family, $600,000 was set up in a trust account to pay for the renovations and the repairs to the Gulick buildings. So they put that money aside. Ben Gulick was appointed as the construction manager, since he said it was his house and he also had the ability and the knowledge about how to fix things up. And everybody agreed. And also the 600,000 was put into a trust account with his uncle, Brad, and he and Brad were in charge of overseeing that trust account. That's 2002. Over the next 20 years, I used to report to you folks on a regular basis about the frustration we were having in getting a follow through to use that money to fix up the buildings. And in fact, I believe Eldrick has been out there. I was out there a couple of times, and they were just falling down worse than ever. So in October of last year, HPC voted to recommend to Layton and his colleagues on the council that a lawsuit be filed against the Gulick family in order to move forward with the restoration of the property. So we did that. We filed the lawsuit. In May of this year, mediation took place as a part of that lawsuit with retired Judge Epstein at his offices up in New Brunswick. And as a result of the mediation, a settlement agreement was reached with the Gulick family to move forward. Yeah, David's got a picture there, to move forward with the renovations and restoration to the property. And the Princeton Council, again, Layton and his colleagues, on this August 8th, approved the settlement agreement. And the settlement agreement provides as follows. Number one, Ben Gulick will immediately list for sale a building lot that was created by a subdivision back in 2002 on the edge of the property. This would be the most westerly edge towards town. A 4-acre parcel was carved out with the idea initially that Ben or some other member of the family might want to buy it and build on it. The settlement agreement provides that Gulick will immediately list this property for sale. An asking price of not less than $450,000. And assuming that it sells for that or close to that, all of the money received from the sale of this vacant lot, except for $10,000, which will go to Ben, goes back into the trust account to pay for renovations to the Gulick property. We're not exactly sure how much is still left in that account. The last time I talked to Ben a year or so ago, there was about $100,000 in that account. So the idea was to get the money from the lot sale and put it back in the restoration account in order to have some money to do some restoration. So that's one part of the settlement agreement. The Ben will remain as a construction supervisor, but Princeton will appoint a second construction supervisor to oversee the implementation of the approved plan. And if we can't agree upon who that's going to be with Ben, we get to unilaterally appoint whoever we want to be the construction supervisor. So there will be somebody appointed, and if anybody has to be paid to do that, it would come out of those trust funds. Next, Ben and Brad Gulick will resign as the trustees or the managers of this fund. And a new trustee will be appointed by Princeton to oversee the money. So we will have control of the money, and Mr. Gulick no longer will. Next, the construction will go forward, hopefully with the construction manager being paid by the account manager under the control of Princeton. And if there are any costs to do this work in excess of the money that we get from the lot sale and whatever is there now, up to $600,000, Ben Gulick has to make up the difference, up to $600,000, so that we have the full amount initially planned for the construction and for the work. And to guarantee that he will give us that money, he is required to give us a deed to the main Gulick farm, which we will hold in escrow. And if he defaults on his obligation to cooperate as the construction manager or to give us the money to build the account back up to $600,000, Princeton can record the deed and take title to the actual property. So that's the outline of the mediation that was worked out by Judge Epstein and reviewed by the council and approved. So right now there is a court order being circulated which would implement this settlement. And as soon as it's settled and we have the construction manager appointed and the account manager appointed and the proper listed for sale, the first event we hope that will occur will be selling the property so we can get the 400,000, hopefully plus, back into that account, with Ben transferring the money he has, if any, into that account, and then we can begin actually doing the work. All of the restoration on this property is supposed to be done under the court order. After we begin, we kick it off with those events being addressed within 1 year. 1 year, that property needs to be renovated. And that's it. So that's
Wow,
what happened with the Gulick litigation.
I think that's great news. And I'm really, really glad. It's been a long time. And it sounds like this is definitely, really big progress. So excellent work, Ed. Thank you so much. And, we look forward to seeing this really happen. So this is great. Thank you.
Well, I
Yeah.
had to get it worked out because I can't be around another 20 years to worry about.
Right. Alric, you want to say something?
I'm just, it's been too many years since I've been there myself and things are desperate. I remember at one point he wanted to put the money into fixing up the barn, which had already collapsed. And I was able to persuade him that the barn was beyond it and it wasn't a significant building on that property. My real concern is I think a year is a very short timetable for what is likely to be a very complicated and an extensive restoration. Is there any way of prioritizing what's tackled first in among those buildings?
Yes, that's why the lead person is going to be the Princeton appointed construction manager.
Okay,
So we're not going to pick out the chicken coop or the building that fell down or any of that stuff. I would assume we would go right to the house. I mean, we would start working on the main house.
Good.
And that decision is a decision of the construction manager.
thank you, Ed. I can't imagine how difficult that process was, and I applaud you for staying with it all this time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Only 20 years.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you
Great
so
day.
much, Ed.
Great
So-
job. Ed. Thank you.
That's great news. So next, we should probably go right into our application, which is 22 Dickinson Street. And I think Justin or Elizabeth, could you bring everybody over?
Sure. Let's see. I am looking. Let's see.
Justin, do you see them?
I'm looking for Ryan Kennedy and I'm looking for Ronnie Breginger on here, and I don't see either of them. Justin, do you see them?
No, I don't see either of them.
Do you see Tom Pinio or Chris Myers?
Let's see. I see
Chris
Chris
Myers.
Myers. Okay,
Okay,
let's see.
maybe Chris can tell us where everybody else is.
Okay, let's see what our timing is here. I think that we're on time. Yeah.
We're right on time.
Yep. Let's see. Uh-oh, someone's texting. Oh, Chris. Oh, he says Chris. Oh, that's right. Chris Costa. That's right. Sorry. It wasn't Ryan. I'll promote him. I forgot.
Chris, do you want to turn on your video? Oh, there you, oh, you guys are all there. They're together.
I don't see them yet.
No, they're all on video together.
I see them. Chris, sorry. I
No,
forgot that you're
Yep, Ryan's out of town and they, I was trying
Oh,
to get
she
in touch with
is.
them because they were all in one
No,
place.
they're all on one video, on Chris's video.
Yep.
Upper
They
left.
are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. I see that. Okay,
Everybody
Alright.
except Chris is there. Making it as confusing as possible.
All right. All right. So let's start off just reminding everyone that we had a concept review of this project. When was it, Elizabeth?
October 18th, 2021.
Yeah, October, and everyone was quite enthusiastic. So Elizabeth, if you just want to summarize your report, and then we can turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Friars Club Partners LLC has filed an application to the Princeton Municipal for the Municipal Land Use Ordinance to convert a building which currently is used for a 3-family dwelling, and they would like to convert that into a 2-family dwelling. And they'd also like to make additional improvements to the house and the property. To do that, they are asking for demolition of probably about half the existing structure behind the front face of the building to add a new addition onto about the same location, in addition to adding new parking in the back, adding a rain garden, in addition to demolishing a freestanding shed that's actually pretty much in the very rear of the property, and constructing a new smaller shed, which is going to be closer to the parking lot and the rain garden. So the subject property is identified as 22 Dickens Street and is further known as Block 44.01, Lot 23. The site lies within the Mercer Hill Historic District and the New Jersey and National Register of Historic Places, Princeton Historic District. This is in the former Princeton Borough in the R4 zone, and this application does require variances. Just so, you know, for information purposes, there was no zoning or engineering report at the time that I was writing this report, so I pretty much went through the applicant's application, and what it states is that the new addition will comply with all the bulk schedule requirements. However, the lot width is an existing nonconformity where you can't change that, and the existing building is non-compliant to side yard setback and height to setback ratio. And I will let the applicant and their attorney address, you know, what those variances are at the time. As Madam Chair had said, the applicant had come for a concept review in October of 2021, and HBC did receive it very favorably. This property is in the Princeton Historic Overlay District as Type 2, which is subject to review from the public right of way and any changes to the surface of the building or any new material that is being installed. Let's see, and I would like to ask Mr. Schmier if they had met the requirements for the demolition requirement that they had for the partial demolition of the house and the garage. I believe that there was a scan that was sent over last week, and it seemed to be fairly complete as far as what their requirements were.
Madam Chair, all of the conditions were met, and we have jurisdiction tonight to consider the application.
So the property contains 0.23 acres, and it's situated on the south side of Dickinson Street, closer to Alexander Street. It was owned by Princeton Seminary until it was recently sold to the applicants. This property does fall within a unique, quiet residential area of Princeton, close to the university and the seminary. So the existing driveway actually encroaches onto the adjoining property owner. So as part of their improvements, they would like to remove that encroachment and realign it slightly so it contains within its property and extend that driveway back towards the rear of the property to be able to install, I believe it's 4 new parking spaces. In addition to those site improvements, they would also be making some improvements to the walkway. And as far as their new construction, they will be installing 3 new covered porches, 2 on the side and 1 in the rear. So the 2 dwelling units are going to be side by side, but front to back. So each one is going to have 2 floors. They will have a basement, and I believe it's 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. Unit 1 is identified as the dwelling in the front of the house, and Unit 2 is a rear dwelling unit. Unit 1 will have an additional den. At Unit 2 will have a finished basement. In addition to those site improvements, they are proposing 2 EV charging stations. They are also adding some new lighting. There's going to be a light attached to the new shed, and there are going to be 2 post lights within the parking area. Just a little history of the property. The existing structure was built between 1870 and 1880 in a stick eclectic style. It's first seen on the Sanborn map in 1885. And at that time, 22 Dickinson was identified as 107. And at that time, the street was already developed. The house was 2-story with a covered front porch that used to wrap partially around the side of the building. The original roof was tin or wood. And by 1890, the property address was changed to 22 Dickinson, and another 2nd floor rear addition was added. So there have been changes to the back, but that is the section in which the applicant is asking to demolish. I am going to leave everything else as far as the details of the property to the applicant. One item that I know the architect will address is the inset of windows, which is going to be an improvements on the historic section of the house. And then I'm just going to go down to the comments. And so the applicant is commended for the restoration efforts for this building, which contributes and retains the special character of Dickinson Street. The addition that they are proposing utilize common design elements that are on the historic structure without making exact replications of those features. The applicant's architect is also commended for her organization presentation of the package of photographs and details, which always makes it easy for the commission members and myself to review and, recognize what is being proposed. The proposed electric panels and disconnect is proposed to be mounted on the west elevation of the historic structure near the street facing building corner. The applicant is asked if these can be relocated to a less visible place on the building. Their site engineering plan and their proposed first floor plan on the architect drawing shows 2 new AC units. Just for consistency, just wondering where that is. The preference obviously is the one where the architect has it in the back section of the building versus the front of the building. So just for clarification on where those are actually located. There is an existing pole that's very close to the rear parking area. And it was just asked if that pole is possible to be removed or relocated to the edge of the property and the utility lines installed underground. Tree height and calipers should be provided on the plan for the new tree planting. That could either be by a planting schedule or just added to the drawings for those trees that are proposed to be installed. And then there are 3 questions for the applicant, which is the original wood windows on the side elevations. Is there opportunity for them to be restored instead of replaced, and perhaps use some of the windows that are in the section that is going to be demolished if those are in good condition and of the same size, if they could be reused in those locations. The parking area is graded towards a 1.5 foot and 6 inch deep riverstone edge along the south and west boundary of the parking area. And I understand that is to collect the runoff. Just wondering, was there pervious pavement considered for this project? And the rain garden seeding specifies that the seed mix along the side of the rain garden will be planted with drought tolerant grass seed mix. And the bottom is going to be a combination of grass seed mix and rain garden seed mix. Not sure what the rain garden seed mix is, if the applicant could address that, and also address if this area needs to be regularly mowed. And that's all I have, and available for any questions the commission may have.
Okay, great. So I hand it over to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Chris Costa from the law firm of Stevens and Lee. I represent the applicant, Friars Club Partners, in connection with the changes they're proposing to this property at 22 Dickinson Street. Our client has come before the concept review before this commission, and fortunately was given good suggestions and incorporated many of these into their report. As you heard, Elizabeth Kim had several suggestions in her report. Our architect is going to address these as she goes through the details of her presentation. And if we miss any along the way and we need to kind of clean it up, we'll clean it up at the end and answer any questions. We have 2 witnesses. Tom Pinio is one of the principals of Friars Club, and our architect is Ronnie Bregenzer. I guess just want to touch on the zoning. We will be seeking 1 variance for a pre-existing lot width. The required width is 60 feet, and the width of this property is 50 feet. So we're seeking a variance for that pre-existing condition, and this width is consistent with the surrounding properties. So that was set forth in Derek's memo, which is dated an earlier date, but we received it about the same time that we received Elizabeth's memo. With that little bit of background, I'll pass it over to Tom Pinio. And Tom, if you could give us a little bit of information about yourself and the project.
Sure can. I'd like to introduce you to a few of the friars and an honorary friar. Everything that's great about this application is due to Ronnie Bregenzer. Many of you know Ronnie, Chris Myers, and Bram Snyder. Another little known fact, both Bram and I are graduates of the North Bennett Street School in Boston, Bram having done the preservation carpentry program. I think since we did our concept review in October, much of this is familiar, but all I really want to do is restate our enthusiasm that if ever there was a diamond in the rough, we feel this is it. 22 Dickinson deserves a lot of love, and we're really excited to breathe new life into it. Again, our plan is to take it from a kind of a rabbit's nest of three units, turn it into two rental units, really breathe new life into the historic facade. In the process of doing that, also vastly improve its performance, its energy performance, and just raise up this gem of both Mercer Hill and Princeton. And this is exactly the kind of property that needs this kind of love. So I think it's really all in the work that some of you have already seen and you will see here. So I think it's sort of self-explanatory. But really just adding our enthusiasm, true enthusiasm. Pinio Construction has 3 historic preservation awards. I think we can do this really well, and we want to do it really well.
Thank you.
With that, we'll turn it over to Ronnie. If I don't know if she can share her screen.
Yeah, I think she can do that.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to start with the PowerPoint presentation to just go through.
Looks good.
We're getting there. Okay, so we're going to start off with, for those who do not know where 22 Dickinson Street is, Dickinson Street runs between University Place and Alexander Street. You can see there 22 Dickinson is one off the corner. Looking at this picture, this is the Friars as it was in 1914, before the side porch was enclosed, before the stair was added, and a few other items. But just to give you a look back. Here's the existing front elevation as it looks today. You can see the house is much smaller than its 2 neighbors. Here's the back, the left side where the beautiful bay window here, the bracket, the scroll work on the gable. We're talking about these back 3 additions, which Elizabeth outlined well in her report. It looks like 1885, 1902. This back corner piece here, the back enclosed porch was added in 1918. And then somewhere in there, we don't have a date, the second floor was added. We don't know when exactly that was. Another picture of the back. The back is in a little bit precarious shape, especially the porch. Some point in time, this upper dormer was added also to get up into the attic. That's where the stair is. And then this is the right side of the house. There's also a Bilco door, which we would be removing as well. This is the stair that we're talking about removing. This allows the current, or not current, the previous occupants, this is how they got to units, the second and third units on the second floor was through this. This is the back shed, also proposed to be removed. The majority of it actually faces the university's property and it stores bikes. It's not able to be kept. It's actually, if we close it off from the university side, it's buried a couple feet in the ground on our side. So it doesn't really work for us. So therefore, we're proposing removal. Looking towards University Place at 22 and the 2 units on either side. Again, you can see this, the beautiful carpentry details on 22 is just a wonderful front elevation. This is looking from Alexander Street. I believe I was standing on the sidewalk, kind of looking at the backyards of all the properties as what you could see from back there. 22 and the others. This is a site plan diagram. It is not as detailed as the Van Oud Harvey site, but this was so that we could sort of break down what are we doing. You can easily see the dark brown addition to remain, the new addition in the tan color, our proposed rain garden back here, relocated driveway, as Elizabeth mentioned, part of it in the hash marks here, you can see actually runs onto number 16's property. So we're realigning that, adding our 4 parking spaces, 2 per unit, EV station for each unit. And the diagonals are the removals of the stair, the Bilco door, the additions in the back, the shed. So let's answer some of the questions regarding the porous pavement. That was thought about, but I think we thought that the rain garden was preferred. We thought the rain garden was actually a greener solution. It works. What Van Oud Harvey has come up with, it's not an issue. It works fine. The rain garden, there was a stormwater maintenance plan submitted. So it requires mowing probably once a year in early spring, removal of leaves and weeds on occasion. But other than that, that's the maintenance that it requires. The trees, 2 trees are proposed to be removed. One is here, that's a Norway, and one is over here. That's a northern maple, and that's a Norway spruce. The green triangle here is the proposed trees. If you look on CE1, you might not have noticed, but there's a schedule there that talks about the trees. So what we're proposing is 2-inch caliper for the red maples and a 6-foot high holly tree. One of the things that was mentioned in concept review was the driveway and the turning radiuses at the parking area. So we did look at that, that we did juggle some things around on the house, but we did look at that. They work. Van Oud Harvey has laid them out in their own parking lot, so we're sure they work. So we are good there, but that was one of the things that we addressed from concept review. Moving ahead to what would we like to remove, just kind of showing the second floor, just so that you could get a sense of a bit of how putting 3 units in this house basically took away the majority of any sort of historic that's left in the house. You're walking through living rooms to get to bedrooms. You're coming up through this sort of circuitous stairway. You're going up and down to get to bathrooms, through bedrooms to get to bathrooms that would be for everybody. So it just sort of shows again how broken up the house is. The first floor is all 1 unit. Sorry, next one. So we are at the front, and we're showing the stair to be removed. And You can see one window in the bay that we'll talk about windows as we move through it. But right now, that's basically showing the stair. Again, all the heavy dark lines are the removals. You can see the funny little attic window up there. Again, the stair and the windows and the back portion to be removed. This is the right side, again, showing the back portion, removals, and the windows for removals as well. The rear of the house, the back, what bits of the stair you see, and the Bilco door also all being removed. Now we're to the proposed. This is, you can see existing to your left, mainly keeping the main body of the historic house intact from the exterior. And then what we're proposing to do inside, as Elizabeth discussed, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, family homes. The back is the addition. There's a link sort of in the middle here, which goes with the first unit, and porches to, again, part of this Victorian charm of things, adding some porches to allow for entries. Second floor, again, you can see where the addition is on the back, adding the 3 bedrooms, the 2 baths, and same on the existing side, reusing those rooms, adding bedrooms where they were not before, and taking advantage of the best of the historic for the bedrooms. Basement, the link part for the first. The link, I call it, it's because it's the link between the existing and the new. That basement has a stair down, giving a little bit more usable space. Unit 2 would have a usable basement area, as you can see. This is the work from the front. Not a lot changing other than the windows in the front are all to be retained. You could see the new addition roof. This is from straight on, of course, as an elevation. You see the new addition roof in the back. Our proposed left side elevation. Again, you can see the existing and the proposed. There are some new windows proposed here where the door was. And then to balance that, we added a window here as a new window. Again, you can see the porches for each house gets a porch off the driveway, and then the back unit gets a second porch that they can access through the parking area. So for the front porch, that would be visitors to the front addition. The massing, we try to mimic and sort of give a nod to the historic, which is pretty obvious with the gable. The gable matches the pitch. The gable has a nod to the arched window that is existing, but we simplified none of the bric-a-brac. We did mimic the board and batten. Lowered, we flattened out the roof and the link, although you won't know that from the ground. But that was to establish a connection that here's the old and this part that steps down and then goes back up, but is never higher than the historic is the new. The materials would be hardy plank, pre-finished hardy plank. So again, this would have a different look than the wood that will be retained on the existing. And again, mimicking materials, it would have the same exposure, but would be obviously look different than the wood. And moving to the rear, this is the part that juggled around a little bit because of our turning radiuses. If we go back, we flipped the kitchen and the living room is what we did to make that work properly. And also gives the living room a little bit better view, puts the kitchen on the driveway side. One of the other issues that came up or requests, comments was the new shutters added at the first floor. We did do that. That came up in concept review and we added those. Again, if you look at the right side here, you can see the electrical service currently comes in overhead and to this corner. What's there now is 4 electrical meters. We would be going down to 2. So while we're not removing that because we weren't putting in a brand new service, it will have less of an impact than it currently does. So that answers one of the other questions. This is the little shed that we're proposing to add, small enough just for bikes or maybe a few pieces of outdoor furniture. Again, mimicking the hardy plank, the clapboard, and fairly small at 12 foot by 8 foot. Talking about windows now, you could see the color coding here, the existing windows to remain the brown, new Marvin Elevate insert windows are the deeper brown, and then the new Marvin full frame, which will be in new windows and frame in the green. So where we went with this, we want to have egress windows. It's a rental. The client feels that we should have, for life safety reasons, egress windows. There's going to be one here at the center bay on the 2nd floor. To the right, there is one. Where the door was, we had to put a new window there. To balance that, we also added this window towards the front. So that's 3 new windows on this side. For consistency, that's part of why we thought replacing the windows, even though they are inserts, may make that left side look more consistent. When we get to the back, it's mostly new. This window on the back would be a casement. We forgot to put the dotted lines in. Sorry about that. That would be a casement because that's an egress. And then on the right side, and I will say the right side's a bit hard to see. It's quite close to the house next to it. But those would also be the insert windows. Some pictures of our light fixtures, the post at the driveway, the shed light would be all black. We're doing porch ceiling lights for all 3 new porches. And then the front light would be a sconce. There's a sconce there now, but it is beyond repair. Here's some of the colors, which I wouldn't rely on these from scans to computer. Elizabeth has the true color charts, which look better than this, especially here, which looks like, black mainly. Lastly, elevation, we color matched what we were proposing to show the building in the colors more or less, sticking with by 1770, 1780, color palette had opened up into more of the dark earth tone colors. And that's what we propose here. The Monterey taupe was sort of resembled the medium gray stone, light gray stone of Old Victorian. Cambridge Riverbed was the medium brownstone, and then the black windows, which were often used for that. So that is our presentation, and I think I got most of the questions, but if not, please ask.
Okay, thank you. All right. I guess if we could go back to the regular screen, I can ask my colleagues for comments or, yes, David.
I wanted to say that I think this is a really nicely thought out plan and very nicely presented as well. I really like how the addition is it's nicely done and it's differentiated from the historic part, but it still has a very comfortable feel to that area. Of course, it's a much larger building than was there or initially started there, but I think overall it comes off very nicely. I was wondering, I see on some of the portions that are going to be taken down, and I imagine this is only a veneer, but there's a very nice stone at the foundation in the front part of the building. And I see it on the back part. And I don't know if anything can be done or if on the newer section, if the, I think it's just going to be exposed concrete, if that could be tinted some to make it a little less dramatic. And again, a nod to what's there with the stonework. And then my, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I guess this is more of a question for Elizabeth Kim and Ed. I don't know how the maintenance and upkeep or neighbors' problems with the upkeep of all these new rain gardens works. You know, committing to trimming the yard once a year may be exactly right, but what if an owner doesn't do that or tends to cut it too much and it doesn't function as well as it should? So we're seeing more of these projects with that in there. And I guess I need some more education about how that's going to work. And if we ever need to say anything in our reviews and our approvals. So I think that's everything I have.
Thanks, David. So yeah, is there an agreement between the, or wait, if these are rental properties, this is the owner then would have be taking care of the rain garden, is that correct?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay. So that in a way makes it easier. It's not like a condo where two groups are working together.
Julie, just to address David's comment, as the applicant had stated, there is a stormwater management plan that's prepared, and that's also that they're doing that for rain gardens as they would a detention basin. So it's kind of their procedure protocol on how to maintain the functionality of it. So I believe that that's something that they're required to do. Who monitors them or polices them, I'm not sure anyone really does, but I think that is the intent of the stormwater management report. And I mean, if there is a concern, I guess that could be just a comment that's made within the memo that, you know, to ensure that that maintenance will be, you know, taken care of when it comes to the rain garden to make sure it functions properly.
Okay, Tom.
Yes, this may have been answered already. I'm sorry, I just had to take an emergency phone call. On the rain garden itself, is there a flow in for the 100-year storm? Where's the excess water from the rain garden flow? It looks like it flows onto the other adjacent property.
Yeah, it looks like that there is a discharge overflow that does go towards the rear of the property, which is typical also for like a detention basin. There's always an overflow where it has to go somewhere. It is, I mean, the applicant can address it, but you know, according to the engineer plans, it looked like it was going towards the parking area for the university, I believe, because that's the way the site or the land in that area grades. So.
One other point then, this is really a jurisdiction question. Is the stormwater management plan part of the purview of this committee? This is pretty complicated stuff, and I'm sure the land use engineer and the zoning officer are in touch with them about this. It's quite technical, and I suppose we, as a commission, already freight upon this project all of our requirements. Is stormwater management also part of our purview?
Tom, the answer is no. This application will march on to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and they would normally address with Justin's guidance what is required for stormwater management. They don't allow the stormwater to be splashed off on adjacent properties. They do require that the stormwater management system be maintained, and there's an agreement basically that has to be signed and recorded to make sure that that occurs.
Right.
Oh, I will just add that the stormwater management was designed by Van Oak Harvey. So it complies. It's doing what it needs to do. I don't want to pretend to be the engineer of the stormwater management because I am not. But I know Derek did not have any comments regarding that. So I know the system does work in accordance to how it should.
So I'm familiar with this because I'm hassling with this in my own personal life. And it's getting to a point where I can't advance the work I have to do on a property because we're stuck on technicals. I think it's better, with all due respect for David's apt points and concerns, I think, which we all share. This is good. What we're talking about historically is complicated enough. Why don't we just focus on that and let the zoning people handle the stormwater management?
I think that was my point, trying to find out, is there anyone following up on this? And
Okay,
it sounds
good.
like there is.
Agreed.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Tom, for your clarifications. Are there, Elric, I know you were quite supportive in the concept review. Still feel that way?
Yes, absolutely. I wish we had applications like this more often. We are confronted, and we continue to be confronted with ill-suited designs. This works really well. I find myself, because it's so good, there are a couple of things which still bother me, and I can't help but bring them up. I think the front door it's obviously a replacement. It would have been in the picture in 1981. I don't know if the picture from the I'm pretty sure the one from the turn of the last century doesn't show it, but that area has good examples of front doors. The side doors are so good. I mean, I tend to believe that there would have been glass in the upper portion of that door. And I think it's worth examining other structures around there to see if there's something that will feel more harmonious with everything else that's in play. The other thing I noticed is that you only have one shutter on the window at the back of the side porch. That may be because originally that opening was reserved for a door. I don't know, but that wouldn't be unheard of with that sort of L-shaped porch. But it's a situation which occurred a number of times at that time. And I think in most cases, they would have had a hook that would have held the shutter at an angle away from the plane of the house itself. And I think it's the absence of a shutter on that side remains jarring to me. But the overall plan is so much better than what was there, and certainly so much better than too many of the projects we're confronted with on a monthly basis. So I applaud everybody involved, and I wish you well.
May I?
One quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any, has the existing shed in the background been spoken for?
It may now be.
Well, it's the sort of thing that could be lifted pretty simply and transported. It's low enough that it could have a future somewhere other than in a yard. And I do know somebody who's looking for a structure about that size. So anyway.
It's theirs.
All right, so after this, you can work that out. Elizabeth, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to, take this opportunity, as Elric said, to really, say kudos to the applicant and their professionals, because not only is their addition appropriate, but also their restoration that they're doing on the historic house, which is really, up in front from the public right of way. I mean, they're adding the shutters, they're repainting, that staircase itself being removed is such an improvement, that went up to the second floor, but everything else that they're doing to the historic section really also just adds to a great project. So I just want to thank them for that.
Can we share the screen again? Can I go back on a couple of questions that you had and I wanted to answer?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, right.
So site plan, we talked about, one of the comments was regarding the air conditioning units and the heat pumps. So they should be coordinated between myself and the civil. If they are off a little bit, that's possible. But we swapped AutoCAD. So let's put it this way, they should be right. What I show on mine, Elizabeth, what you said you preferred, that's fine. We can do that. Not a problem. The other was your comment regarding the pole that's in the backyard, the utility pole. The utility pole was on 22 Dickinson. However, the utility needs our neighbor to the right, which is owned by the university. So if we take the pole down, they have no power. So it's not really our choice. I know the Friars want to talk to the university about that, but that's something that has yet to be done and that we need to circle back around and discuss that with the university. But it's not a yes, no from the Friars side. It's going to be with the university. And then to Elric, I had 2 points. One, Elric, we did take your solution and simplify our side doors and just have a simple shutter. I'm sorry, simple transom and door. But I wanted to go back to this picture so that if you look closely, you are correct. You can see the original door was actually two front doors with glass above. And the reason that the shutter is doing what it's doing is when this side of the porch became enclosed, the column hits there, and that's why that shutter's missing. So I know what you're saying. It bothers me as well. Perhaps we can put something on an angle there. But address those 2 comments.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate that. Well, let's see, I think,
I want to go back on one other, sorry. Stone
Yeah, go
like
ahead.
material on the side. Somebody brought that up. Think,
Parge or paint, yeah. I'm not clear
on the
that.
foundation.
somebody brought up how
Yeah, I
beautiful
think-
the stone was and could we,
Yeah, that was my point. I don't know if you can reuse it or if there's a place that would be appropriate or it would just look silly, but I just wanted to ask.
there you can see some of it.
David, are these the stones you're talking about at the base?
Yes.
I would say this, I mean, often in Victorian homes, not all of them had the money to put the stone. They often painted foundations. And maybe that would be painting or parging in a color would be something that could be done.
On the
Yeah.
new one.
Yeah.
On
yeah.
the new one, I'm sorry, on the new one.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about painting, but I suggested tinting, but something would be nice.
No, we won't just do concrete.
Yeah, we're not gonna have concrete. We were planning on parging or painting that. Absolutely. The new foundation.
Terrific.
This is Shirley. I had the same question too, and kudos to Mr. Myers and your team. I had the same question about the stones, if they could be extended. And did those stones come from the quarry in this area? Do you know?
No,
Do not know.
You
I do
don't
not
know.
know.
But
I was
would
out
do
that
it, if something can resemble those stones all the way through.
All right.
Well, I think to answer Shirley's question, I mean, it would. There's not enough stone there to do the whole, for sure. It would require taking. It would require. I don't know how they would clean up. Except for some kind of synthetic stone or thin cut stone. If we were to do it as a full stone, we'd have to kind of redesign the foundation to cantilever the wall over the stone. I guess in the category of anything is possible, but it would be a significant lift
Mhm.
to do that. Maybe we could think about a place to incorporate some of that stone and use some of that stone.
I will point out that when they closed the side porch,
Yeah.
they kind of arched it and then
Yeah.
scored it into this sort of block-like pattern. At that point, they didn't use the stone either.
I have to,
Thanks.
I have to say that
Considered stone.
the effort to separate the new and the old, as complementary as they are, is a rationale that would be followed if you did an appropriate stucco finish for the rear section. So again, it would feel like it was something which was a later alteration. And if you're going to use the stone at all, use it in the backyard.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with the Secretary of the Interior standards,
Yeah.
they always encourage some kind of delineation between the old and the new. But as everyone's pointed out, you guys have done such a beautiful job at creating a harmony between the two sections that this makes it really easy for us. So if we could go back to the main view, and I could ask if there's further comment, and if not, if anyone had a motion, that would be appropriate. David?
I move to approve the project as presented. It's really a great job. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll
Roger.
second. I'll second.
I think Shirley beat you, Roger.
Hey, Roger, I beat you to
You got your
So-
turn.
Elizabeth, do you want to take a roll call?
Of course. Ms. Capizoli,
Oh, yes.
Mr. Shore,
Yes.
Mr. Endersby,
Yes.
Mr. Sheskin,
Yes.
Ms. Satterfield,
yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
and Mr. Pyle.
Yes.
All right, guys. We will make sure that the zoning board knows you have unanimous enthusiasm for your project, and we fully support it.
Thank you so much.
Huzzah, huzzah.
Thank you.
I can,
Thank you
All
all.
right,
Thanks.
thank you. All right. So, thanks very much.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could make an announcement that 19.
5.
Yes, will not be heard tonight, just in case there is anyone in the public who was interested in attending for that.
Okay, we're talking about 197 Witherspoon Corner.
No,
We're talking about 19, yes, that's the one that will not be heard tonight. The demolition of the garage on
That's what I
Witherspoon.
thought. Okay, so 197 Witherspoon Street will not be heard because of some technical difficulties. I guess noticing issues or something.
Correct.
So we will be hearing that application at our September meeting, which is the third Monday in September.
The 19th, Madam Chair.
19th, okay. But we will be hearing now, 195 Nassau Street. And let's see, I think, Frida, did you want to recuse yourself or? Okay,
doesn't mean you have to mute yourself.
You actually have to turn off your screen, Frida. I think that Justin's going to put you on the public.
oh, so make sure you come back.
He'll bring you back.
Okay. All right, so let's see. So let's bring over I see Mr. Letizia. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
And I think there's probably more folks coming over.
Yeah, there should
Tom?
be two, Jeffrey Albert.
Yep, I've got
Wait,
them.
wait.
And the only one, Tom, I don't have is David Newton. I don't see him in the public.
Yeah, he may not be joining us.
Okay, well,
Will not be.
Right.
okay, we'll keep an eye out, or someone can let us know if for some reason we don't see him.
All right, very good.
But he's the only one on your list that I didn't see.
That's right.
Okay, so let's start off with, if you're ready, Elizabeth, let's just start off with your report.
Okay. So 195 Nassau Street LLC has filed for a preliminary and final major site plan application with variances to the Princeton Planning Board to construct a new multi-unit housing development. Project consists of 3 lots known as 195 Nassau Street, 911 Charlton Street, and 13 Charlton Street. They're further identified as lots 23, 26, and 27 in block 47.01 in the Princeton tax map, in the retail office district, which is a RO, and the affordable housing overlay zone 1, which is a AHO1. The project site located near the corner of Nassau and Charlton Street consists of 0.61 acres. The applicant proposes to demolish an existing 1-story office building and part of a 2-story office building that faces Nassau Street, the rear portion, and construct a new 45-unit apartment structure as part of the downtown redevelopment. As a condition of approval, the applicant states the 3 lots will be consolidated into 1. This project site falls within the suggested Andersontown Historic District under the former Princeton Borough of the Historic Preservation element of the Princeton Community Master Plan. I think everyone is familiar with the procedure and the application. Because it's under the jurisdiction of the Planning Board. There would be a memo from the HBC chair summarizing the comments from this meeting for their meeting, which I believe might be September, Tom. I'm not sure if there's a date yet.
We don't have a date yet.
Okay. So just a little background on the Andersontown Historic District, which derived its name from the 18th century landlord Isaiah Anderson. I believe several commission members were on this commission when the application on the corner of Nassau and Charlton was also reviewed several years ago. This district comprises properties east of the Central Historic District along Nassau Street, which contains a mixed use of properties, remnants of the 19th century residential houses blend with of the more recent 20th century service and commercial development. This area was once referred to as Gasoline Alley in recognition of the many auto dealerships and service stations that were located along this stretch of Nassau Street. The project site is fully developed already. It's at 93% impervious. It's comprised of 5 buildings and a parking lot. And an interior office building. Number 3 is the only structure that does not face onto the street. And the building numbers that are referenced in the report, building 1, which is the blue Victorian, it's a 2.5-story building. Building 2, which is a brick office 2-story building, and building 3, which is a rear office, which is a 1-story masonry building. That all has the address of 195 Nassau Street. 9 and 11 Charlton Street is referenced as building 4, which is a tan Victorian style house, and 13 Charlton Street, which is building number 5, which is a big white Victorian style house. And those are all referenced from the applicant because that is the way that they present it within their application as well. So all 3 Victorian style houses are identified as dwellings on the Sanborn map. Houses at 195 Nassau Street and 13 Charlton Street was first documented on the 1890 Sanborn map. The previous maps did not include the east side of Washington Street. That's why that is the first time that it's seen on the 1890 map. The house at 9 and 11 Charlton Street was first mapped on the 1902 Sanborn map, and it's shown as a side-by-side dwelling. Currently, a combination of retail, office, and residential use functions within the 5 existing buildings. As mentioned, the applicant wishes to demolish the interior 1-story office building, which is building number 3, and a partial demolition of office number 2 to construct a new apartment building that will attach the rear of the office building number 2 facing Nassau Street. Most of the parking will be accommodated, new parking will be accommodated on the ground floor of the new structure with 4 residential floors above. This application does intend to retain the 3 existing Victorian style houses. The construction of the new 45-unit apartment building is going to continue to be situated interior to the site, and 20% of the apartments, which are going to be 9 units, will be allocated for affordable housing. The new structure is proposed at almost 55 feet, and if you measure to the exterior elevator shaft, that would be about 67.5 feet tall. The amenities for the new development include an elevator, a lobby with package storage lockers, interior bike storage, electric bicycle and electric vehicle charging stations, a meeting room. There'll also be new courtyard and landscape areas incorporated into the site, and a rooftop deck. 2 rain barrels will also be proposed to assist in stormwater management. The rooftop deck will have a 10-foot high canopy over the patio area, and there will be a continuous walkway along the perimeter of the roof line with a railing and screen. The rooftop mechanical unit will also be located on the roof, and they'll be shielded with the same type of screen. Material on the exterior new structure, I'm not going to go through that. I think the applicant can probably address that, but it is listed within the report. New walkways will be concrete. The driveway and surface parking will be asphalt. There'll be decorative pavers installed at the driveway points of ingress and egress, and at crosswalks at the apartment building entrance. Granite block will be used where curbing is proposed. The on-site parking will accommodate 38 line parking spaces, with 2 of these that will be designated for handicap. There'll be 6 electric vehicle stations to start with, and I believe the interior parking spaces will be pre-wired for future charging. Access to and from the site will continue using existing 3 driveways, 2 which are off of Charlton Street and 1 which is off Nassau Street. These will be directed to be one-way only. Ingress will occur using the northern driveway on Charlton, and the remaining 2 driveways will be for egress. The southern driveway on Charlton Street will be widened, and an existing tree well in the right-of-way will be relocated to accommodate this wider driveway. There'll be some additional fencing added along the back, which will continue and tie into the existing fencing. And then there is some existing fencing that's going to be along the sides of the building. The parking area utilized for, I believe it's just to kind of protect and separate the building from the new driveway. There'll be new light fixtures that are going to be all mounted on the new structure and on the side of the existing Victorian houses where the driveways will travel between the buildings to illuminate the area. 1 tree will be removed as part of this application, and the application does require variances, but I will also leave that up to the attorney to be able to address that when they make their presentation. So just to go to the comments now. Obviously, it is very much appreciated that the Victorian house is going to remain. They will continue to support the historic character of the streetscape within this area. And also the partial demolition of the building when then if demolition is required, I think that that location is appropriate because it retains the section of the building that has the windows and the decorative cornice. And the proposed development is also interior to the site, which allows the buildings that are on the street face of the building to shield it to a certain level, and then have the additional higher building behind it. Let's see. Just a concern, the Charlton Street is a narrow one-way street, and the width of that driveway that's widening on Charlton seems to be wider because it's accommodating a parallel parking space that doesn't seem to be able to maneuver out of that space and actually go back onto the one-way drive. And if there was a way the applicant could look at that and see if they could maneuver it, maybe make the parking spaces shorter for maybe a compact space or something, to be able to reduce the width of that driveway. And let's see, the applicants also asked it, when I'm looking at the grading plan, it appears that the garage level is about 1 foot below grade. So I'm just asking the applicant to confirm that. Just want to make sure that that was read correctly. The lighting that's proposed for the fixtures, it is recommended that the LED lighting to be 2700 K, which is typically what the commission likes. So it is more of a neutralized color versus the very bright white light. And the last comment, which is that the proposed development, I think that it's a great location for the apartment complex because it's interior to the site. It's not right on the street. And I think that there is a great buffer that's that will work to its benefit. It does seem a little bit tight. It feels like it's really pushing the development on there. If there was an opportunity perhaps to contain all the parking underneath the building, that way there would be more green area, because right now there is parking that's pavement that's paved right up to the base of some of the historic buildings. So if there's an opportunity for that, for some space, landscape, something to be within there, I think that that would be really advantageous. But again, it seems like it's a little tight, wondering if there's an opportunity to perhaps, contain it a little bit so there is a little bit more area to do planting. And it would also be beneficial to put larger shade trees, which would kind of balance the proportion of the proposed building. Right now, it seems like there's more ornamental trees, which have great color, but I think that something larger might also benefit if there's a mix. And I believe, there is also a wayfinding sign that is proposed. I'm just asking if the applicant could present that. And there are just some comments for the applicant at the end, but I believe that they can address that as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, I guess I'll turn it over to Tom.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. Tom Letizia, attorney representing the owner and applicant, Nassau 195 LLC. We're very happy to be before you this afternoon to present a plan for redevelopment that will implement or fulfill a policy established recently by Princeton Council to encourage multifamily housing with affordable units within the downtown area. And I think this might be the first example of that under the overlay zoning that they put in place approximately 18 months ago. So as was noted by Ms. Kim, your role here is in a courtesy version that we're not in a historic area. We realize it might be in one of these recommended districts, but we appreciate your comments. We'll take them under advisement, and we'll try to address some of them in this brief presentation that we're going to make. So with me are Jeffrey Albert, part of the ownership, as well as Caleb Firing and Micah Firing. They're together. So I think they're going to handle the exhibits, but Jeffrey's going to talk to them. So I'll turn it over to them.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And again, let me just reiterate that we're very appreciative of the commission's comments, and we look forward to discussing them with you. I guess we want to start, we have very few slides, but we wanted to give you a little bit of context. So we just start with a very brief, exceedingly brief presentation just to sort of orient you and to give you a sense of the decisions that we made and why we made them. So we go on from here. If you could advance one, please. So the design, we had a lot of design choice here. While it's a fully developed site, there's still quite a few design opportunities and so on, but we tried to adopt several guiding principles, if you will, for how we wanted to see this site redeveloped. First, we determined that we really wanted to preserve all the street-facing buildings, and as you'll see, the Blue Victorian is a sort of a landmark type building. It was the ancestral home of the Thompson family, and presents itself very sort of powerfully to the street. We also felt that it was important for any new structure to have a substantial setback from Charlton as well as Nassau. We obviously want to come up with a color scheme for the new building that would be complementary and have a family resemblance to the existing buildings in the immediate area. And we chose the new building location as well as the circulation to try to take advantage of the depth of the site that we have. So if you could advance to slide one, please. So these are the existing buildings. On the upper left-hand corner is the Blue Victorian building at 195 Nassau Street. It is attached to a brick building to its west, which is the building on the upper right-hand corner. That building extends to the rear of the site. And as Ms. Kim said, that we determined that if we were to take any part of that building down, we wanted to retain its most important elements, and we certainly wanted to retain the streetscape. The buildings on the lower part of this slide on left and right are the buildings on Charlton Street. They are fully preserved, and the access ways from Charlton Street themselves are also preserved and actually enhanced. You could, yeah, one more step. So the new building that we see here in plan was as far really from Nassau Street and as far from Charlton Street as we could place it on this lot. It is only a couple of feet off the property line of Princeton University on Plan South here. That property there is the old Nassau School that Princeton University now uses for its arts programs. And then on Charlton Street, we also have a substantial setback of 50 feet. And with the intent of having the existing buildings on the street somewhat shield the new building, but also to preserve the streetscape and the rhythm of the street as it now exists. So these are computer images of what the new building might look like, will look like as it's planned from the street. So on the upper left-hand corner, that's the view south in the corner of Nassau and Charlton. Forgive the computer program that does not show, the existing buildings with a lot of detail. In the middle is the view southeast between 195 and 185, which is the the Nassau School. And then the view east along Nassau Street in the upper right-hand corner. The view along Charlton Street on the lower left, which is the northwest view. And then finally, on the lower right, the view south from the corner of Charlton and Nassau. This is really intended to try to demonstrate what the effect of the new building might be visually. Understand also that these images are imperfect in many ways, and someone walking on the street will be looking obliquely up and probably will not have the same view as you see in these images. The images are probably exaggerate the view of the new building, but nonetheless, we wanted to give some sort of indication of what the effect of a new building might be on the street. This is an example. We have not yet chosen the precise color scheme, but this is the family of colors that we had in mind, which are again in the same family as the blue Victorian building, the 10 Victorian buildings on Charlton Street, and they would be certainly within the same framework, the same complementary series of colors that we would choose for a new building. And this slide again shows the location of the proposed new building in context with the existing buildings around it, the school building to the upper right, Charlton Street to the lower left, and Nassau Street with the crosswalk being exposed. Again, this is the blue Victorian building, which is one of the windows onto this entire property. It's interesting that many people in Princeton are not really aware of how much property there is in the rear, and the fact that it is entirely impervious today. And so we hope to greatly improve this property, as well as to try to actualize what the municipality has incentivized, which is affordable housing and appropriate apartment development within walking distance of downtown. So with that, we would love to engage with you on the on your comments and discuss them in some detail.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to make sure everyone, got their set of the A220 that is in that slide of elevations, A221 and A222, because that's a large version of what we just saw on the screen. And I wanted to ask Tom, so the requirements for the overlay, I think, aren't you required to keep the buildings on Nassau Street?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
That's part of the overlay. And I just wanted to educate the commission on what the overlay is, when the council implemented it, and why they did this. I mean, I know they were trying to encourage to preserve the streetscape, but at the same time, improve development. And so this is kind of a marriage of the two worlds. And then to do that, they were giving higher density, I think. And then what you're asking for is a slightly higher version than what's in the overlay. Is that correct?
Yes, I think it's 4 feet, 8 inches above.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really to accommodate the parking deck.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that that parking is highly valued And it's really an essential part of any development. We certainly don't want to tax the immediate surrounding area and wanted to preserve as much parking on site as we possibly could. In order to do that and still meet the needs of the overlay, which is really to produce as much affordable housing as possible in the most appropriate places, the best way that we found to do that was to take the parking and put it underneath the building. And in order to do that, the building is 4 stories above that parking, which pushes us 4 foot 8 inches above the height requirement. And we will be asking for a variance to that effect.
Okay, and then I think that I appreciate the explanation on that. And then, but as far as the density goes, that's part of the overlay. So I just wanted everyone to understand that. Because that overlay is a change from like, you know, a year or 2 ago. Anyway, are there questions for the applicant? Tom?
Yes, first, I commend the proposals of the project. Looks very innovative and addresses a lot of things in a very tight and constrained space. So very intrigued by what you're trying to do here. Is the frontage preservation that we talked about on Nassau Street also applying to the properties on Charlton Street?
Yes.
So 911 Charlton Street stands. Do I understand then that there are going to be 2 accesses to the property on either side of 911 Charlton?
Yeah, if we could bring up the site plan, I can describe that more fully for you. All 3 of those access points exist today.
Yes.
Right now, every one of them are 2-way, are in and out, egress and ingress.
Right.
What we've tried to do is to rationalize the circulation. So
Yep.
the two on Charlton Street, they're both 1-way. So there'd be 1 way in on the I guess that's the northern side, and then out on the southern side. Right now on Nassau Street, that is both an ingress and an egress,
Right.
and we're proposing it to be only egress. It really is not a particularly, it's what we used to call in planning school a suboptimal situation.
Okay, so this is not historically related. I'm just looking at the traffic flow and the effects on Charlton Street as a frequenter of that area, parking on that street as I do when I attend church at the St. Paul's. There are 45 units in here, and understanding that we're intensifying the use in downtown Princeton and supposing that that is inevitable, given that we are urbanizing a bit more. But can you just comment for my own edification as to how the traffic flow will be and how it's going to affect Charlton?
Well, what we're proposing is that all of our traffic enter through Charlton.
Right.
And
Which will still be a 1-way street, so they'll be coming in from Nassau Street.
exactly, it'll be 1-way street. But the traffic leaving this site will be split so that
Yes.
some of it will come onto Nassau Street, some of it will go
Yeah.
back onto Charlton.
Okay.
Right now, the intensity of the use, which is the office use, what we're told by our traffic engineers, and we will discuss this fully at the planning board, is that we're really not adding a whole lot of traffic in and out of this site, office by residential. We're also going to be using it at different hours of the day than an office use would be. So again, we will be discussing this fully at the planning board, but.
Thank you. One final question, which is a jurisdictional question, and that is the properties on Charlton, 911, and then the one on the other side of the egress. Is it 13 or 15 Charlton?
13.
13. So 13 in particular doesn't look very historic to me, nor does it look very attractive. These Charlton properties are in the proposed area and not in the actual historic preservation area?
Well, none of this property is in historic preservation.
Yeah, this isn't a district. This is just mentioned in the master plan as a possible district.
All right. Well, I obviously appreciate the the courtesy to be able to review this. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tom. The other thing I'd like to focus on is the planning board specifically likes our commission to comment on the historic features and the juxtaposition between the new building and the historic properties. And I don't know, are there other comments about that? David, Elric, Roger?
I can't tell if I'm muted or not. I can't see the,
No, we can
you're
hear you.
okay,
you
good.
You want to go back to the main screen? There we go. Okay.
There, good. I think my comments are very similar to Tom's, but I hear what you're saying. So yes, Charlton Street is a very interesting street with a lot of interesting things all the way to the end where Dr. whatever his name is built that incredible house, and the Momos are next to that with an also interesting property. The traffic on that street is already something that I think has impact on this district that is being recognized as in some way special. It's not a historic district. So I feel some need to ask the same question. A lot more traffic coming onto that very narrow street. Will it in some way make those buildings less desirable and become at risk for not being as well maintained and regarded? And that's a very big question. I don't know how to answer, but I think that since Tom also brought it up, it's something that should, I guess, go into the memo that we send, that the new building and retaining the old buildings around it is very interesting. Probably not a whole lot of, I don't have any issues with that. It's what it does to just the local traffic and the value of the properties around it. And how is that mitigated? How is that fair to them? How do we as a organization trying to look out for the best planning and preservation, say, hey, this is a cool project, go. We have to ask that question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Leighton?
Yeah, I would just like to say that this certainly does address a vision of mayor and council with regard to the overlay. And what is also good is there's 9 affordable units here.
Yep.
It does help us realize our, I think, objective of smart growth and making wise choices. I will say, however, that I went there today, looked around, walked around, and I was really surprised. It was the first time I had actually driven from the street across Nassau, directly across the street into the entrance to the left side of 195. And it's shocking how much room there is in the back. And it is all concrete. And to the extent that this site development would put more pervious areas, more trees, more grass, that is absolutely a good thing. I would also add that as I looked at what's referenced here, the 2 houses on Charlton Street, 9, 11, and I think 13, they are going to be at their backyard entrances very close to this structure. So I would just, and I'm not a design person or an architect person, but I think that the applicants want to be careful to mitigate, that
Encroachment.
if I live there, I want to kind of come out of my backyard or come off of my back porch and not run directly into an apartment building. But I think, if you guys can thread the needle with regard to some of the nuances, that this is really a great idea. I would also add to look at the traffic pattern. I drove I crossed Nassau Street going into the drive area, and that was a little treacherous, quite frankly, because you got to look both ways. And it was good that a person coming from the Nassau Street School stopped and let me in. But I would look very closely at having people leave also that apartment complex, having to make either a left or a right coming out on Nassau Street. Obviously, you got to make allowances for the pedestrians that could be coming from left or from right. So I also think that's something you want to look at just to mitigate any problems with pedestrians and or traffic. But on balance, this is kind of what the vision of mayor and council was for Nassau Street. You have plenty of room in the back to do this. And I, again, would just be very careful about the impact of the people, especially on Charlton Street, whose rears toward the end there come in close proximity to the apartment building. But I think that conceptually, I think this is a very good idea. And I really hope you can make the necessary movements or adjustments based on information you hear from this board and from others to make this work.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newland. I do want to stress that I believe the planning board meeting is going to address traffic in detail. And so they're probably looking for more about the height variance. And, what's our take on that? Like they're asking for an extra 4.5 feet. Is that acceptable? Do we support that? More about maybe the variances. Roger?
Yeah, in that regard, Mr. Albert alluded to the computer modeling not being a realistic picture. I wish there had been like a sightline study. My assumption is that you're really not going to be able to see the building very much from the south side of Nassau, possibly across the street on the north side, but that would be helpful in terms of judging if the extra height is disturbing or not. Just as a more general comment, we're seeing a lot of infilling of interesting spaces in town. I happen to love that little funky backyard there. I mean, I look at that and like Leighton hadn't really seen it before. You go back there and it's like something out of the Wild West, that little one-story building in the back of the lot. It's cool, it's cool, but we're balancing interest here and I think we are on our way to a more urban environment. And in that regard as well, just to piggyback on that, I think the number of automobile spaces is under the regulated amount, but I do think you have a lot of people who will work in town will not necessarily have to commute out every day. So I don't like to see all the funkiness go away, but I understand the need to do so. So I'm on the horns of a dilemma, but I think it's a good project overall.
Hey, thanks. I haven't heard from Elric yet. Where are you?
Hey, we're getting used to these projects coming in, these multi-story buildings and former backyards and whatever. Of those that we've seen in the last year or so, I think this has been the most successful for the fact that it really does segregate the building with a screen of existing structures. It's very tight, and I know that every dollar counts, every unit counts. Personally, I would hope that 4 or 5 of the units could be eliminated and the parking places consequently lessened in their scope. I paid rent to Bryce Thompson for 14 years and went into that office fairly regularly until I realized that every year when I went in, they would hike the rent. And if I didn't go in, they didn't notice. So, but anyway, I used to sit there on one side of Bryce's desk and behind him was his grandfather's safe. That really was that area I never knew was Gasoline Alley, even though there were gas stations further down the street. But in the 19th century, behind all those structures, there were livery stables. Tommy Lynch was the most well-known. He was behind Thomas Sweets. He was the one who used to race horses on Nassau Street, and he taught his racehorse to go when he has said heard whoa and the opposite way around, so that when he would yell when he would yell, "Whoa," his horse would take off and all the other horses would slow down and he'd win the race. Anyway, Bryce would talk about the fact that where his office was, that was the side porch on his grandfather's house. And they took advantage after they widened the lot for the Nassau Street School of having that nice view. The reason why I bring all that up is that if it had been up to me, I would have considered removing the least attractive of all those buildings, which is Bryce's brick office building adjoining the Nassau Street School, and use that for the egress, where you actually can, it isn't cramped between two buildings. It would be open on the side close to Nassau Street School. And looking at the plans for the layout of the garage, I understand why at this stage you wouldn't want to do that. I would have hoped that it might have been considered. However, I hope I'd be very interested in what comes up with when you go before other boards about traffic. That really is a serious concern, and particularly in a town where there is a greater presence of bicyclists that are Roger and Leighton proof of that. It bothers me that this is car centric. Anyway, I wish you well. Enough from me.
All right. Thank you, Elric. That was very helpful. Shirley, oh, go ahead, Roger.
No, I just had a question. I don't know who, again, it's a jurisdictional question, but since Nassau Street's a state highway, right, it would make sense for me to only have a right turn out of the driveway that goes to Nassau Street. If you have people waiting there to make a left turn across traffic, I can't see that happening very easily, especially with the pedestrian walks the way they are. I don't know if that's a municipal call or a state call.
State.
Roger, that will be debated and decided by the planning board. I mean, it's obviously an issue that has to be addressed in the major site plan. So all of that will be looked at. Tom and his clients will carry forward with a traffic study, and it'll be addressed.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's going to be a huge emphasis on traffic. So if we could provide other commentary on the physical appearance of the building and its relationship to the historic structures. Shirley, did you want to say anything?
No, I just was remembering going to the back there where Roger was talking about the buildings, because I remember getting my ears pierced in one of those buildings. I can't remember whether it was a doctor or what, but that was in the 60s. Also, somewhere in that area is where my science teacher had a garden when I went to Nassau Street School when they integrated the schools. So I'm doing some remembrances, but I'm just concerned about when we say affordable, because in Princeton, it kind of concerns me as to what exactly is affordable. And that's one. And also there's a school across the street, the St. Paul's School, and that's going to cause a lot of traffic also, especially when the buses come to let the kids off. So those were my concerns.
Oh, thank you, Shirley. So I definitely think, like Ed was saying, traffic's going to be a major focus at the planning board, and they're going to probably be doing studies and all kinds of commentary on that. But as far as the actual building goes, I think no one seems to have any objections to the building proposed, given that it's buffered between Nassau Street and the building. Those structures remain on the streetscape. So I just want to make sure we're kind of unified about that.
I think we are, Julie, but
I'm okay with it.
I was going to say the same thing, but if we could play chess, and going back to what Elric suggested, could you get a better egress an exit in and out where the brick part of the Thompson complex is, and therefore compromise that building so that all the other buildings and the whole atmosphere of Charlton was better. They weren't having to absorb as much traffic. My chess game would be take that building and alleviate some of the other stuff.
Well, I really don't want to get into traffic because I think, as it's been said, it's a subject for the planning board, and it's a
Indeed,
burden.
but it's a neighborhood that we're also.
No.
supposed to be
I
concerned
no. I
about.
want to. I'm going to address
Okay.
it. First, we would have to take down a building that faces Nassau Street, which is not in the letter nor in the spirit of the overlay zone. Two, there's no way that the state would permit 2 curb cuts on the same property within that distance from the existing curb cut there. So we think that there probably are some insurmountable challenges in going forward with that. But nonetheless, we understand our burden to demonstrate that the traffic and the circulation all work well.
All right, thank you. Are there other questions or comments for the applicant? I'm wondering if, Ed, do you have a pretty good sense of what our memo would be? Yeah, I think you're on mute.
Mute.
You're muted.
Unmute.
Happens when you have 2 mice on your desk. I grabbed the wrong one. The answer is yes. I've got a good feel for the report.
Okay, good. All right. Well, are there other questions, or do you want to just stay tuned until they come to the planning board? I guess.
We haven't really talked about the architecture. I was interested in the wood and the patterning that they're talking about. But if we're going to have another go at this, I thought the part of the presentation would include that.
Oh, like a more defined elevation that we could see.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I had a question about that as well. I mean, it in black and white, it looks rather busy. The color scheme that's been presented, though, would mitigate some of that busyness perhaps. So we don't really have a good sense of that in terms of what the overall design would be.
We can provide some more detail on the elevations and the architecture. It's
Thank you.
not intended to be busy.
I mean, maybe for the planning board, if you could provide more detail on the elevations, that would be helpful.
Gladly.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we appreciate your time and we appreciate you coming to us. And we hope this has been a helpful discussion.
It's been very helpful, and we appreciate the opportunity to be before you, and thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right.
All right,
So
take care, everyone.
take
Bye-bye.
care. Okay, bye-bye. All right, so we do have, as I said, 197 Witherspoon Street has been delayed for a month. Ed, do you need to read something about that, or Elizabeth?
No, the problem was they didn't publish in time or at all. So they've got to redo all of the noticing. We don't take jurisdiction. We do announce that why it's not on the agenda tonight. When I'm speaking with their attorney today, they understand that they have to renotice everyone and they have to publish the notice, and that'll take place on the before the meeting on the 19th of September.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure it's clear for everybody. So we have another application. This is busy for August. This is 86 Stockton Street, and this is the demolition of a garage. No, that was the last one. This is a new garage. Sorry, this is
New garage.
This is the new garage and site improvements And it's the beautiful Stedman House.
Correct.
So are the applicants on the panel now?
Coming over.
Great.
Let's see.
And just to let you guys know, we have 2 concept reviews after this. So I'm hoping we can move things along.
Whoa.
Okay, just members of the public, if you are here for this application to represent the applicant, please electronically raise your hand. I don't see the architect now or the applicant, so
We don't?
I do not.
Okay, because if they're not here, we could go to a concept review and then come back.
Elizabeth, an
Yes.
account named Princeton Middle School PTO raised their hand, so I'll move them over.
Oh, great,
Uh,
thank you.
It might be one of them under a different name.
Okay. And if we do have the applicant for 86 Stockton Street, I think it's Jessica and Jessica and Matthew are the owners.
Right, I don't see them there, but maybe, oh, here's Jessica. Okay.
Okay,
Jessica, is your architect Joe Gallagher here? Do you
He
know?
is not joining right now, no.
Okay,
I don't
very
think
good.
we need him. I can review it. It's pretty
Okay.
straightforward.
No
great.
problem.
Well, Elizabeth, do you want to just summarize real quick? I think you wrote a report, so.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So the applicants Jessica Gallara and Matthew Roden have filed an application pursuant to Princeton's Historic Preservation Ordinance to construct a new freestanding one-car garage and to add a new roof to an existing side porch, which faces onto Edge Hill, and install a new generator and other site improvements to their property, which is located at 86 Stockton Street. The site is further identified as block 36.02, lot 1 on the Princeton tax map, which is located in the R1 zone of the former Princeton Borough. The property contains 0.3 acres and is a corner lot at the corner of Edge Hill Street and Stockton Street. Also, Stockton Street is known as State Highway 206. The site is in a developed residential neighborhood with Princeton Seminary properties nearby. The applicant, who are the property owners, came before HBC at their July 20th, 2020 meeting, which many of your members might recall. And they had come before HPC to install Tesla's solar glass panels onto their roof. They were new property owners at that time, which the commission had granted. And the applicant is returning today for additional improvements to their house and property. So just, real quick summary. So, this property is in the Mercer Hill Historic District. It's also on the New Jersey and State and National Register of Historic Places as a Princeton Historic District and the Kings Highway Historic District. As the chair had said, this is a Stedman house. It was constructed in 1830 in the Greek Revival style. And a lot of these details were discussed the first time around when they came in for their solar panels. There is an existing driveway and parking access from Edge Hill Street, and hedges along the property currently function to delineate the property. And there's also plantings that serve as foundation plantings. There is a wood fence that runs along a portion of Edge Hill property, and there are several mature trees on the site as well. Let's see. So the new garage is going to be 15 feet by 24 feet with a height of a little over 4 feet. The garage doors are going to be facing west with windows on the east and north elevation, and they also will have sliding doors. with a shed roof over that, and brackets will be installed on the north elevation. Two sides will have windows, they'll have shutters. The overhead garage doors will be 9 by 7 feet. The color, it will be dark green. It'll have a standing metal seam metal roof. There'll be a light fixture that's mounted on the garage as well. It's proposed at 2,700K to 2,200K, which is great. It'll have some decorative brackets. There'll be snow guard rails on the roof. And then the driveway, what the applicant would like to do is they would like to actually relocate their driveway curb cut to make it work better for the new location of the garage. And they would also like to use Belgian block, which are going to be 4 by 8 by 10 to kind of delineate the driveway apron and the apron in front of the garage. The rest of that driveway paved area will be, or excuse me, the driveway area will be gravel. The side porch will have a low pitch hip roof, which will be constructed again facing onto Edge Hill Street. It's going to be a copper roof, and it'll have built-in gutters, which will be copper line. There'll be crown molding. There'll be aluminum downspouts. There'll be columns and a new railing, which will be just custom made to accommodate the new columns. The steps to the porch will be replaced with new bluestone heavy steps in a blue-gray. The new generator is proposed in the landscape in the front yard of Edge Hill. The unit is about 30 inches high by 15.5 inches long by almost 7 inches tall. And then there is a new sidewalk that is proposed that is coming from Edge Hill and connecting to the garage and the side porch, and the existing slate patio and walkway within that area will be removed since this will be taking its place. Another large component of this property improvement is that there is a new landscape design proposed where there are several shade tree and ornamental trees added, which will remain. Sorry, I thought it said remove, bad eyes. And then just to go to the comments, the Belgian block, which is proposed to be installed for the 2 aprons. This is actually not a historic material, and is actually noted in one of the documents. There is a lot of brick within Edge Hill, which most of the HPC member knows. There's like actually brick gutters that are lined, and there's also brick walkways, some brick within driveways and things like that. So that might be a material that might be more appropriate for use on this property. The other thing is it is suggested that perhaps the garage could be moved back slightly, back from the street. The houses that are on this property, typically the garages, if they have any, because not every property actually has a garage or a driveway, are typically behind the house. So we want to make sure that the house itself, which is such a beautiful house, stands out instead of the garage. The applicant is addressed if any trees need to be removed as far as this application. I didn't say anything, but I just would like them to confirm that. And the applicant did discuss in their yard improvements package. They did talk about the bricks, and that some of them are in very good condition. And there is a new walkway, which I believe is a combination of slate and brick, if that's right, Jessica. And just wondering if that brick was intended to be reused for that, or if you were intending to bring new. And the last comment is that the new landscaping, there are plants within there that are not native. And, you know, I think the HPC understands that when there was historic landscape installed, it was not about native plantings. In fact, the most important thing was that they would get it from every other place, because they get it from Europe and Asia, because that's what, you know, they felt was
Interesting.
Interesting, right? And it created more, you know, diversity for their property. So the only concern that I have that it's not invasive. So I would just recommend that the applicant their landscape plan be reviewed by the municipal arborist just to make sure it is not on their do not plant list.
Yeah.
And that's the last comment I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, let's let Jessica address the comments.
Sure. Do you want me to share my screen just quickly to run through the presentation, or has everyone seen it and I don't need to do that? I can run through the presentation.
You
real
can
quick.
go through it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah,
I don't do this that often, so just bear with me.
sure.
And I start share and then desktop 1. I don't know why it's giving me some issue, but share. Hold on 1 sec, sorry.
It's pretty Wi-Fi intensive, so.
It's okay. I just need to, I'm not sure why it's not letting me share my screen.
Got plans.
You know, we do have plans and we could talk about it. I guess,
Well, I guess the point that I would love to show the presentation, but maybe my technology, screen recording, automation, open system preference. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry.
That's okay.
Does anyone know how to do this on a Mac? Why is this not letting me do this? Sharing. Oh, there it is. Screen sharing. Okay, that should work. So let's see if this works now. Okay. So in essence, if you remember the house.
I mean,
My
we're not
goodness.
seeing that. We're not seeing your screen.
It's coming. It's coming.
Oh, okay.
If you remember the house, basically the house, we haven't touched anything as relates to the house at all, exteriorly, other than removing an exterior stair similar to your first applicant who had like a makeshift stair getting up to the 3rd floor. We removed that, but other than that, we have not really changed anything. One of the issues we have with our property is the current driveway. If you have the plans in front of you, because this does not seem to be allowing me to share. If you look at the current driveway is very close to the front of the property, and it creates a squeeze where people coming off of Stockton Street wind up coming quite quickly as they try to cut across traffic into Edge Hill Street. And what happens is that we get inundated as we come out of our driveway. So what we'd like to do is actually move it further from Stockton Street. So close that off and reinforce the vegetation that's already there. There's already privet there. And create a situation where the driveway is actually on the rear property line. Then you would, your egress being the rear property line, you would drive into the driveway and into a 1-car garage. I have absolutely no problem changing from Belgian block to brick, absolutely none. We are trying to use as much of the historic material as possible. Some of the bricks, when we pull them out, crumble. So that may not be possible to be reused, but I have absolutely no problem using brick. The existing gravel driveway will remain basically the same gravel in the same place. It's not changing at all. The only real thing that's being added is the garage, which actually the minimum zoning for the average setback on that lot is 19 feet, or on the street is 19 feet. That was calculated by Derek Bridges and the zoning department. We're proposing 25 feet back. And the reason we're doing that and not any further is we'd have to remove a tree. So I don't want to touch any trees. And in fact, all of our plans do not impact anything other than some bushes. So no trees are impacted. We have a lot of historic trees on our property. What is being impacted are some yew bushes, and that's really about it. And it's reinforcement of some privet All of the plantings we've worked with Rutgers are native species. They are all, non-invasive. We're actually retaining our coverage. Lot coverage is impacted only significantly, and it's still within boundaries. So everything is within zoning. We just need to get approval for the actual placement of the generator because it's technically in the side yard spot.
Yes.
Otherwise, everything else is really cleaning up of what is there. That is frankly not attractive, not historic and not attractive, and really improving safety. The other thing, we were not going to propose doing a roof over our side porch, but we had the pleasure of being visited by the original family who lived in the house 100 years ago or 80 years ago. And the woman, we bought the house from her dad's estate, basically, from Andre Yocana's estate. So Lisa Yocana came to visit us and she said, "Oh, I can't believe you haven't put a roof over the deck yet. My dad never used the side step because it always got covered with rain and covered with snow." And we thought, well, there you go. Now we have reason to have to do that. We wanted to do it, but we always said, maybe it's just us. I don't know. We've proposed basically adding a side roof to the deck, to the porch, that is that's basically similar to, if not almost identical to, the other Stedman houses that are on Alexander Road on the side porches. So it's nothing really out of the ordinary, pretty standard stuff. So is the garage. Frankly, we have no storage for any bicycles, anything. We are just stuck. And the only reason that we've chosen that 25 feet is that we don't want to take down a tree. So I don't want to push it any further back. And it's already back behind the 19 minimum that is required by zoning.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. And I'm really glad that you're considering brick instead of Belgian block. I think on Edge Hill especially, there's a lot of brick in the area. So that makes a ton of sense. Are there other?
I have no issue with that change whatsoever. I mean, it was more to mix it just because it gets a little bit too similar, right? So to create a difference in the variation, but I have no issue with making it brick.
Are there other questions or comments for Jessica? Yeah, Elric?
I'm curious, the family that lived there before, was that the Outer Bridges?
No, the Yocanas. So actually the house was originally bought in, I want to say 1930s, late 30s by a woman named Frances Brown. Frances Brown actually bought it and actually bought it for her daughter, who was only 14 years old at the time. And that woman then married Mr. Yocana, and as is common in those days, it became the Yocana house, not the Brown house. And Mr. Yocana lived in that house until we bought it from the estate. But his daughter, Lisa, who is probably in her late 50s, early 60s, grew up in the house. And so she came to visit us. She had heard that from our broker that we had done a bunch of work inside, which we, to be honest, only really redid the kitchen. We've maintained a lot of the historic detail, which one day we'll open it up for you guys to see. But it's pretty impressive that, it's a lot of it's still there. So she loved seeing that it was still sort of in the same vein, but with a brand new kitchen.
Okay.
And she gave us a lot of stories.
I didn't mean to.
So anyway,
I'm
it's all good.
interested in all. There was somebody named Claire Outerbridge with whom I went to high school, lived there, but who knows? Anyway, my comments really are about the garage, and it has to do with the fact that it has sort of a split identity, and I'm wondering if I'd like to suggest a few things to think about. One is the snow guards I look at. It's only the pitch, it's 15 feet wide. And it seems like that's really superfluous. I may be wrong, but it's important, but the only place that's really important is over the doors that go in. And that really is my principal question. The doors make it look like it's not a garage at all, but it's a party barn, which you certainly can use it for, but it also just looks more domestic than what you would typically find on a garage. And I'd like to suggest you think about something like a solid door with a couple of perforated windows in it, which could be slid back and forth on a track in front of those doors so that if you were entertaining, you could push it back. But on a regular basis, it would feel more like an outbuilding. And the other thing that looks incongruous to me is that graceful but very alien bump out for the opening.
You
The
mean for the
doors
doorway?
open in as it is. It just seems to me like that's superfluous, and it really doesn't fit with the house or the neighborhood. It just feels odd to me. So
Can you clarify? I'm sorry, you're saying
well,
on the
there's a
garage?
little- there's a
Yeah, the
little,
little roof, the little shed
uh,
roof that comes off of it.
roof with a kick to it that comes out over the doors there. That just doesn't, you're not trying to make this look like a Greek revival garage. You're trying to make it look like a secondary building on the property, an outbuilding. And that's a decorative flourish that just seems alien, at least in my mind. So anyway, and thank you for the background on the house.
No worries. I guess what I would say about the garage and the sliding doors, it's absolutely not meant to be a party central, but I think that, we sit in the backyard and we really don't want to look at an unattractive structure. So there is an element of trying to find a happy medium between something that is utilitarian and something that kind of looks a little kitschy and nice to look at when I sit and have a cup of coffee. So
You can still have the glass doors back there, but particularly if you're
I
so
see.
concerned about snow, have
Right.
something which looks like it should be on an outbuilding.
the other thing I would say is that it's actually not visible really from the street because there will be two lines of hedgerow between. So there's a hedgerow that blocks the parking area from Edge Hill and then the parking area from the backyard. So there's actually two rows. It'd be very hard from the street to see any of that.
Quick question or quick
Yep.
comment. We have absolutely no purview over this, but when you're dealing with porches, I'd love it if you'd consider removing the glass around the portico on the front for the front door.
Oh.
It just
But that's
feels.
historic, isn't it?
No, the one on the side porch was added, and I love the fact that they used to, when people had people to help them on their properties, those glass inserts would be removed every summer. And I'm sure you use that porch as
We do.
seasonally a lot, and I wouldn't touch it. But the one around the front door, it would be so much more graceful if it looked like the other Stedman houses, the one next to you and the one that on Library Place. So,
But that's for another application.
That's for another application, yeah.
Yep, sorry.
But as far as any kind of, purview, we only have jurisdiction over what's visible from the street. So if it's not visible from the street, Elizabeth, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yes, so are we talking about the front door? Is
Yes.
that
We're
what
talking about we're talking about the garage, actually.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
Jessica
I
was
guess
saying,
Elric was talking about the front door and you're
Yeah,
saying
no,
that's a
no,
different application.
We're not touching the
No,
front
later.
door
we're
right
not,
now.
no,
Yeah.
we're not,
Right.
no, we're not doing that.
Sorry,
Okay.
yeah, so anything that's visible from the right of way is what HPC has privy to. So if it's the back of the garage, which can't be seen from Stockton and obviously can't be seen from Edge Hill, then I mean, it could just be a comment HPC makes, but it's not something that they would really, comment on because if it's not visible.
It doesn't,
Right,
this
so-
isn't to the back, it's to the side facing the house.
Oh,
is
it's on
visible from
the
Edge Hill.
north side then.
It's on the
On the
north
north.
side of the house, but not really visible, Elizabeth, because when we do the two rows of hedgerow, you won't really see anything.
All right. Are there other questions or comments for Jessica? I mean, I don't have any problem with anything you're proposing. And I think it's great. You're taking such good care of this Stedman house. This is a beautiful house.
Trying
Um,
one day at a
so-
time.
yeah. So Frida, are you on?
Yeah,
Shirley?
I'm here.
Okay.
No, I mean, I don't have problems with their proposals either. I always drive around and see houses and I classify them as being either well-loved or not. So I think it seems like that's the direction you're going in. So great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
great.
I have one recommendation for the brick. I know what you're saying about it tends to look same, but you could, use a different pattern. You could mix in the brick color with some gray. You could really make it look different because you're right. In a town like this, there's a lot of brick around, and you might want to make it stand out a little bit or look different at least.
Well, I know the curb cut, because we're in the historic district, we have that yellow brick sort of in our gutter, which obviously will maintain. The thought was actually, the reason we chose the Belgian block was because the yellow brick against the red brick is going to look very colorful and sort of so that's why we said, well, maybe we'll do Belgian block, but I'm happy to do as recommended brick. I just thought I was trying to be a little bit more neutral, but
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, great. Shirley, you have anything?
I don't have any. I think the last people to live there, or maybe the people second to last who lived there, was Reverend Dr. Peter Paris, who was a professor at the seminary.
I mean, I would love to know the missing links. I have sort of Julian Street, and then I have a deed for Westminster or something. I think actually for a year, it was owned by some trust. And then the Frances Brown, I don't even sure who she bought it from, but I would love to know that, but I don't know how, the Historic Society doesn't have any information.
I'll get you in contact with them. They now live in Delaware.
Perfect.
So
I would love that. Thank you.
Well,
That's
All
great. I
right.
would love that.
Well, thank you. I feel like we're pretty much in unison. This is a lovely house, a beautiful project. No real concerns. And we do have still 2 concept reviews, so I'm not trying to rush people, but I'm like cognizant of people's time.
Yep.
So if not, is there a motion here?
So moved.
Okay, to move to approve as presented?
Yep.
With the exception of the brick?
We'll
versus-
change. We'll just change. That's fine.
Okay, all right. Is there a second? Oh, Elric second. Okay, Elizabeth, do you want to do a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Capizoli,
Yes.
Mr. Shore,
Yes.
Mr. Endersby,
Yes.
Ms. Satterfield,
yes.
Mr. Shatskin,
Yes.
Mr. Pyle,
He has a
left.
note that he got kicked out, so he's in
Public.
public. Yeah, so he needs to be let back in.
Oh, okay.
But I think he said he agreed. He typed in. that he
Okay,
agreed,
Ms.
so-
Howard,
Yes.
I think he's coming over. Hold on.
All right. Well,
Wait a
thank
minute,
you
hold
so
on.
much.
Oh, wait, here's Tom.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, get back. Thank you, Tom. All right, and I think we can let Ed go. So he's done. And we really appreciate you coming in, Jessica. Really appreciate it. Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
Thank
very much.
you.
Thanks, Ed.
Bye. So, yeah, thank you,
Thank you,
Ed.
Ed.
All right, so now we have a concept review of 33 Lee Avenue.
Right. Okay, coming over, we're gonna do,
Abel Smith and Sabrina King
they might be on the same. They might
on
be
the same camera.
Hopefully, maybe.
Okay.
Yes, there you are. Great.
We're just gonna
Oh.
fix our background.
That was pretty funny.
I have a very small head.
Move forward.
So anyway, this is a concept review. The address is 33 Lee Avenue, and you're proposing to put in some dormers.
Yes.
So do you want to share your screen or show us a
Sure.
picture?
Sure.
Okay.
Here we go. Can you see it?
Yep.
We'll slideshow it so you can see the slideshow. Can you? Well, this is probably good enough anyway. Okay. All right. So we bought this house in 2013 and we have kind of a young family, a couple of daughters.
Do you want me to put it forward?
And put what forward, darling?
The-
Oh, can they not see it yet?
No, I just,
And so this is our house. It's at 33 Lee Avenue. So we want to renovate it, including putting dormers on the second floor, which I'll show you a little later on in the PowerPoint presentation. And we would like to restore the home because it's in pretty bad condition. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So so I'm sort of a historic carpenter, so I would like to sort of restore this thing, utilizing a lot of the details that exist now. Did you want to, I know you guys have worked hard tonight and you've done a lot, and did you want us to kind of introduce ourselves and talk about ourselves a little bit, or do you want to skip that?
Well, we could just go to whatever you want. I mean, if you want to
Yeah.
just show us some pictures, we
Yeah.
can give you feedback.
Okay. So
this is our background.
you want to go ahead, because I think we'll just kind of show them, this is the neighborhood, this is our house, up a little closer aerial view. And I took some photographs recently of, the angles that I could capture from the front. So it's a beautiful, charming kind of historic home. I think it was built around about 1920. There's a couple of features in the front that have changed over the years. There's a concrete stoop. I'm going to move my little cursor. I don't know if you can see that. That's all I know how to do on PowerPoint.
Yeah, we
So-
can see your cursor.
Okay, so there's a concrete stoop here with some sort of newer metal railings. One of them is bashed up. It was bashed up when we bought it. So we want to get rid of that and put wooden steps. This is a pressure treated balustrade here, this kind of infill. So we would like to, put something historic there. We have details, forthcoming before our final review. There's some beautiful kind of turn columns here and a nice frieze. And so some of this stuff is damaged. I want to bring it back. There's K gutters here. I'd like to do half rounds down here. There's an 8-inch horizontal siding here. It's in terrible shape again, so I'd like to redo all that. And this is a cedar shake, 3.5-inch and 8.5-inch alternating exposures. So I'd like to redo that. These are all vinyl windows, replacement style. So they've shrunk, because they left the old frames in. So I'd like to do new construction style windows so that I get the old frame size back and old glass size back. There's Yankee gutters up here, which Elizabeth kind of pointed out in a meeting. They're a little bit of an oddity down here, so she'd really like me to keep those. So I would like to keep these Yankee gutters. Kind of, they're all leaking and the roof is rotting. So I'd like to put new gutters in. This dormer will remain. It has asphalt sidewall detailing now, so I'd like to put the cedar shingle up on those side walls and keep all these proportions the way they are. And then if we start to go through the presentation, yeah, would you please? Thank you, hon. So these are the existing condition elevations. And as we go through, you'll see that I would like to do dormers back about 14 feet from the front. This is the front of the house. So dormers about 14 feet back. It's a non-conforming side yard on both sides. So these will occupy only 50% of the elevation. And then a little balcony on the back, kind of facing the back of our backyard. So the elevation changes, a little bit up here with these sort of 412 dormers, but they are far back enough, that I think they won't really change. I'll leave it up to you to really decide, but I don't think they really won't change these views very much, being set that far back.
Have you thought about any other addition on the back or just the dormers?
To give you the history of the process a little bit, I started designing this a couple of years ago, when our second daughter was born. And I was trying to conform to the sort of FAR limit on the house. And, I designed something back then and didn't really get it into this application process, but, the FAR did not increase with this 7-foot ceiling rule. And I did not throw in any 6'11" ceilings, it was all kind of real space. And then when they changed it to 5 feet, it kind of changed the FAR. So I was trying to not change impervious and not change FAR when I conceived of these ideas. So I would like to occupy the attic. I would like to not increase the footprint of the home. Is kind of the long and short of it. So to answer your question, no, I had not really considered doing an addition. I think that might be, nicer for historic, but more problematic for zoning.
Well, Elizabeth, would they need to get, do you think this would trigger a zoning variance anyway, the dormers?
It does.
Yeah, so, right, as Abel said that it does, I think that he's probably thinking that his concern is how many variances would he have to apply for with an addition. So I guess it depends, Abel. Like what kind of change it, and Derek's very good at kind of looking at it and saying, well, the board has reviewed a lot of these and they've looked favorably or not, or it's been problematic. I think that that's the best you can do as far as, getting some feedback, because obviously he doesn't vote either.
Right.
He sees enough of the application. So I guess it depends on, what you would like. If you're looking to do an addition, it might just be worthwhile for you to talk to him and fold it into one application instead of doing one and then coming back later. I don't know.
Well, if you don't mind me commenting on that, I've had 3 meetings about this with Derek, and he thinks, he of course he's not going to vote, but I've sort of picked his brain on this, and he thinks that because it conformed to, I didn't require an FAR variance prior to that rule change, the 7-foot ceiling to 5-foot ceiling rule change.
Right.
He thought that he had a pretty good sense that they're going to like this idea, in zoning, and that they would rather I do this than extend the house, add more foundation and all that sort of thing.
I have a tendency to agree with that, because you're already maintained within the existing footprint.
Right.
And they just changed that ordinance too. As you said, you would have been conforming, but because they changed that, and it was really, really due to violations from people not like you.
Yeah, I understand what people were, he explained to me what people were doing to sort of get around the rule, and, putting in 6'11" ceilings and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was a smart thing that the town did, frankly. It's just, I got caught up in it, and now I'm trying to, finish these designs that I've been kind of working on. So that's kind of the history.
Well, I personally don't have any problems with the dormers, and we've seen a few projects like this, and this is done very nicely. I don't really have any problem. Does anyone else have comments or suggestions?
Here we go.
Yeah, it looks good.
I'd like to see more of the patterning from the existing building applied to the dormers in the back. And I guess my first question would be, how is the 3rd floor going to be used?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Art.
Well, if you could bring back the image, I could explain what I'm thinking. First of all, I'm guessing there are no corner boards on the house?
Correct.
Okay. You said before you were thinking about having shingles on the dormer, the existing dormer, but you don't, actually, it looks like you drew it correctly with I love the patterning of the alternating shingle depths. That's a wonderful feature from that period. Yeah. And I applaud you for enjoying it and commenting on it. You will get problems with water with shingles if they're too close to that roof on the front. And you probably, you may want to have it recessed more than you would generally from the roof itself, because the shingles will absorb that water from the end grain at the bottom. The dormer on the side, which you can see to the right there, I'd like to see it start not at the eave, but set back the same distance that shows up on the front of the building. You're really not going to lose much in whatever the room or the space is up on that floor. And I think the other thing I see there's a chimney presumably for the furnace that's disappeared on the east elevation, but the windows don't seem to have anything to do with the windows on the existing house below. And if they can be positioned in such a way that they relate to that, I think that would be helpful. And I also, does the deck on the third floor go all the way from one side to the other, or is it set back, or how is that handled?
Yeah, the idea is that the deck goes from one side. I don't know if I have an exterior elevation here. One comment I wanted to make, Elric, is that I have, a winding staircase coming from down below.
Mm-hmm.
That helps me get in, below that low ceiling, because it lands me out from the wall plate a little bit here. So moving this back, would further encroach on that and make that a very difficult transition.
Okay.
Just a problem that would arise if I were to try to reorient this towards that. I mean, it's a very small space. It's a very small house. This house is, I don't know exactly how many feet wide it is, but it's very, I should have pulled that dimension for this presentation, but you can see what happens when you get up here. You have very little room for a master bedroom, bathroom. So shrinking that back, appears to be about 2 feet here, would be pretty problematic as far as occupying that space. So I appreciate your comment, but I just wanted to mention that as well.
Okay.
And this roof deck here. So I've always wanted to enjoy the view that we have out the back, that is sort of, when you get up high enough, you can see sort of mountain lakes, you can see the trees and things up above Community Park School. So the idea is that we can have a spot out there to sit, in the evenings or whatever, off the bedroom. And I would like it to go side to side. I think it is almost invisible, or I would call it invisible from the front. But I am, just to alert you to this, this is a hip roof currently. The line is drawn in there, but I'd like that to vanish and have this be a gable roof in the back. Just because, I can't exit a hip roof, I can exit a gable roof. So that's how that design sort of came about. There's an interplay with the stairs, where they originate on the second floor and where they land. I need to have a headroom here, so I can put a dormer wall in a certain place, and I can only have a 50% long dormer there. So that's kind of how I design. Anyway, the theory is behind why I designed it that way.
I hear you. Okay.
Yeah.
The one comment on the front, when you redo the existing dormer, you may find that you want to have a solid board on either side of the window rather than what the shingles. Again, when they're that narrow, you're gonna have some. You may have some problems. And the other thing is, do you know whether the house, and by the 1920s, they often would have 1/1 windows, but there were examples which would have multi pane upper sash, and I wonder if there were any old photographs or whatever that would if you're talking about windows, changing the windows, you might investigate that. It looks fine with the 1/1. Don't get me wrong. I do find the ones up on the top look a little forced, because
these ones.
Yeah, they look like bathroom windows that have been
proportions are a little funny, but they have to be a little bit squat because this is a fairly slow wall where it originates.
That's why I wondered whether the wall could be pushed back so that you would gain a little headroom, but if the dormer started back a little further.
Yeah, I understand your comment. Can I ask you a question, Elric, about something else you said? So I think what you're saying is, so what I did is I took the 8-inch exposure horizontal siding and I put it up here. Would you rather see this up there? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Particularly if you're planning on doing it on the front dormer, then I'd use it all the way around. But
so I think I would like to do it up here. I think that would look really nice. And then you would like to see it here as well.
That's your call, really. But I find it one of the most distinctive and pleasing features of a house from that period.
Right, and there's a nice little bell here. There's a nice little kind of splay right here where it stops. That's really pretty.
If you look at houses which have retained their original paint schemes, usually the first floor and the second floor are treated differently. So you may have a, keep your eye out or talk to Frida. There you go.
Yeah.
You got it.
White and green, and the cornice turns back into white. And I think I would like this to be green. I think I'd like this and the dormer wall to be green.
And by the way,
Consider
that you see how the dormer hips in the front, and I don't think you showed that on one of the illustrations.
I think that is accurate. If not, it's a mistake. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I have to redraw that. These are still works in progress. I have to kind of finalize them, put dimensions on them and everything.
Anyway,
yeah,
this is the kind of project that we love. Okay. I'm
yeah.
just saying that we really love this kind of thing. You're taking such good care of this house. It's so much in keeping with the style. It's like 100%. I think you're on the right track. I don't think you'd have any trouble at all.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
She took the words.
Good luck with this.
Yeah, as one who is a historian and has lived in this community for generations, I'm just so thankful that you're keeping the house historic and not wanting to, well, you couldn't knock it down, but I'm just thankful for what you preserve for the house. So thank you. I'm your neighbor up on Quarry Street.
We've met before,
Yeah.
Shirley. Hi, how are you? I haven't seen you in a few years.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
And Leighton, also, he lives on Birch Avenue.
I see
Yeah,
Leighton, I
he's
see
your
Leighton
neighbor.
around. I
Yeah,
see Leighton around quite a bit.
Very, very well done.
To the neighborhood. We
Thank you
welcome
very much. We have, we sort of listed everything in the PowerPoint presentation. I forwarded it to Elizabeth. There's a lot of information there. If you guys want to read through that, if you're interested before our next meeting, because I'm going to try to get on the roster for September.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I definitely see this as very positive. You're going in the right direction. And we just appreciate the concept review. We love concept reviews. They're great.
Well, we appreciate it too, because we don't know anything about it. So this is giving us a little insight into what we need to do to prepare our application. So we're working with Ryan Kennedy, by the way, from
Oh yeah, we know him.
You know Ryan. So he's helping me out a little bit, and I own a company called Willard Brothers Woodcutters. It's a kind of furniture making, and we make wood and things out of local trees. And so he's a woodworker, and he's pretty excited to be working with me.
Excellent.
Good.
That's
Julie,
great.
I'd just like to say that if this is the same Sabrina King who's has such a spectacular career with the women's volleyball team at the university, I'm shouting you out and asking her what's the outlook for the team this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they're coming back on Wednesday and we'll see. We had a ACL tear in the spring. That's going to be damning, but it's okay. I think we're going to be okay. But thank you for the shout out.
You guys are famous.
Yeah,
She is.
making it on and off the court. Good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
All
And
right.
just keep
Thank you.
going. It looks great. Looks
Oh, thank you
wonderful.
very much. Okay, we'll see you soon.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So I think, David, you're chairing the next one. Okay. And I get to turn off my camera. Bye.
Okay. Okay, I'm bringing Max Hayden over and Annarella, who is the property owner. So I believe that's all. But let me just check. Annarella, it's just you and Max Hayden, is that correct?
And Chris Costa.
And me again.
Oh, okay.
I'm bookending the meeting tonight.
Oh, but you're here already. Okay, I was,
I am.
making sure I didn't leave
I-
someone in the pool of publics.
Hey, Max.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And
Hi,
Arella.
Max.
So I guess we'll start off, huh, Anarella?
Okay, so hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for your time. And so I'll be as brief as possible.
Annarella, give me just a moment. Why don't I
Sure.
start it off and then I'll introduce you if I could.
Sure.
Since I'm here, I should act like an attorney. So again, it's Chris Costa from Stevens and Lee representing Annarella. First, I want to thank Elizabeth and the members of the commission for fitting us in this evening. I know, Elizabeth bent over backwards to get us on the agenda, so really appreciate that. Annarella owns the property at 600 Mercer Street. This is a property that's adjacent to the Princeton Meeting House and the Princeton Friends School property, and is at the intersection of Quaker Road and Mercer Street. It's located in the E2 district. The property is 1 acre and was previously part of the larger Princeton Meeting House lot until it was subdivided off into a single residence in June 2020. After that subdivision, Annarella purchased this residential lot, which is 1 acre from the Princeton Meeting House, in March 2021. She purchased it during the pandemic, which of course had its own challenges, but these challenges were significantly amplified by multiple flooding events. And then this was punctuated by the extreme flooding caused by Hurricane Ida in September 2021. This flooding ended up filling her basement and inundating much of the first floor of the dwelling as well, and it rendered the house uninhabitable. And this is really what brings us before you today. Annarella has engaged in a lot of analysis as to the historic value of the existing dwelling. I call it a house. It was actually an office for many years. It's had many activities that have gone on in the dwelling over the years. But based upon this analysis, she and her architect Max Hayden, have come up with the proposal that we'd like to show you this evening. And what we propose to do is just give you a quick summary of the history of the property as it relates to Annarella's plans, and then have Max present his plans for the property, which we think will preserve the historically relevant portions and also provide Annarella a new dwelling on higher ground on the property, which will put her outside of the flood hazard area. But before that, I want to give Annarella, who I just interrupted, a moment to introduce herself.
So thanks again. I'm Annarella Valdivia, and I bought the 600 Mercer Road March 2021, and I just fell in love with the history, and my children loved it. They called it the Forest House. So it's myself, I'm a teacher, and my 2 children. And I was looking forward to beautifying it and everything. And unfortunately, I got hit with several floods of biblical proportion. Tornado and Henry flooded it. And then Ida came and flooded it even more so that it was uninhabitable. And I'm still in a long-term rental. So what I'm proposing is I would like to just construct a home on dry land, but also honor the historic nature of the property.
And with that, I'm going to just share. It's too late in the evening for technical challenges, so I'm going to get over this very quickly. There it is. Just a little bit. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay. So this is the location of the property. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's on this corner of Quaker Road and Mercer, and it sticks out very close to the road. That's it from another angle, and it's this side angle. And let me just get to, and that is from behind, and that is the rear yard facing into the property. We had Richard Grubb and Associates do an analysis of this property in terms of its historic value. And they came up with interesting findings that the Princeton-Kingston Branch Turnpike was an early toll road which ran from 1807 to 1864. And this house, or a portion of this house, was constructed in 1860 and served for 4 years basically as a toll house for that turnpike. The findings, and again, I'm rushing through this, but we submitted the full report if anybody wants to review it in full. The findings basically were that the the house was, or the structure was built about 30 years after the end of the district's period of significance. So under the guidelines, it's a non-contributing resource to the district where it's located. However, in the opinion of Philip Hayden, who did this report, the property, portions of the property possess the necessary significance and integrity for individual eligibility for listing in the NRHP under the criterion A. And so basically, he had a finding that it was relevant. A portion of the property is relevant. Because our first thought, given its condition, was, can it simply be demolished? One of the most valuable illustrations that Mr. Hayden created was this showing of the relevant portions of the property. There's the phase 1 portion, which was constructed in 1860 and served as a toll house. As you can see, there was a small add-on in 1870 constituting phase 2. And then in 1900, there was a little bit more of an add-on. And then in 1948, there was a number of pieces that were added on to the property. And so our view and hope is that this board will agree that the historically relevant portion of this property is the portion that was constructed in 1860. Max Hayden, the other Mr. Hayden, created just a one-page sheet showing this portion. And we actually created this sheet originally when we've been trying to come up with the best plan for Annarella for this property. And one thought was that we leave this portion in place in its current location and create floodgates to mitigate flooding of the property. As this project has evolved, we came up with a different approach that we'd like to hear the board's feedback on, and I'm going to pass it on to Max at this point for his presentation on this plan.
Chris, and what I might do is share, I guess we can see it well enough here.
I'm going to stop and then give it over to you.
Okay. So Annarella and I talked quite some time ago, and then now was approached again, and having owned a building extremely close to a road, 2 of them actually, can feel for her plight, not only with the flooding, but also with the proximity to the traffic. And, we talked through the idea of keeping the toll house just where it is and then building a residence further back. But then, the toll house would be kind of a study playhouse, kind of just a little accessory building. So not sure that we really wanted to do that. We came up with kind of a hybrid idea of moving the original section back and attaching it to a larger house. And let me see if I can share my screen properly. So our proposal is to take the original toll house and made it to a bigger structure in the back. Something that's sympathetic architecturally, kind of a vernacular building. Let me try to open up another one yet. This would be the view from going up Mercer Road towards the park. And the floor plan. If I can rotate this. The toll house would be in the front and it would be moved back and it's virtually its same orientation. In this scenario, you know, it becomes a very viable part of the house and actually gets used every day and gets restored and is way out of the floodplain and, you know, hopefully is a remembrance of what used to exist, albeit in a different location. And, you know, that was really our thought. Let me go back to the front elevation. You know, so much of the house that exists at the present location has been added to over time and is no longer just the toll house. And it's not in the best of shape. It's built very low to the ground. So the 1870 and 1900 additions probably are very compromised in the crawl spaces. And the 1948 addition to the left also has a very small crawl space, and the porch and the garage to the right are on a slab. And, you know, so we've come up with something that's a little bit more of a codified house and would be, Chris, do you have a site plan?
I do.
And
Yeah, let me just,
if you could show that.
if you can stop sharing for a moment, I will do that.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
So the proposal is to keep the driveway where it is. We're going to eliminate some pavement. There's some extra parking, you know, again, because this was office use, but create a parking area that would enter the garage. This is a little, it's one generation behind in the design. I think the toll house is a little bit of a bump out here on the left side. And as you can see, this was the toll house previously. These are the portions of the property that would be proposed to be demolished. And then the toll house would be brought back here as an addition to the proposed new construction.
And the entry to the garage would be at the rear of the house. So you wouldn't see, garage doors would not be presented to Quaker or Mercer Road. It would just look like a wing. I mean, the other thought that we had was to keep the, you know, as I mentioned earlier, was to keep the toll house and then just build a separate house. Just seemed like that toll house wouldn't be used as much and be kind of left as a relic.
What is direct south? Was the toll house oriented to the sun or to the bridge and the road, or what? Or on its original location? To the road.
Yeah, there should be a north arrow, Chris, if you can zoom out.
Yeah. There we go.
There you go.
So direct south would be pretty much the meeting house and the friend school.
Okay.
And I guess it would, you know, Quaker Road kind of flows a little bit to the east.
No, 18th century houses, farmhouses would have faced south, but this actually wasn't built as a farmhouse. It was built for the seeing passage of vehicles on the road.
Chris, can you show that plan again where you talked about the evolution of the building? I just want to see what the addition sequence was.
Absolutely.
And could you also remind me of what the second addition was that was added? Was say circa 1870, so like 10 years later? Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I think he does do a description of that. And he has.
The 1870 addition is a very low shed roof addition to the 1860 gable addition.
Did it continue with that shed roof or did it evolve to something more later?
The 1900 addition is also, it's a continuation of the shed. So there's a gable out front and then there's two sheds.
So if you see this roof here where this chimney is,
Yeah.
this is the toll house portion.
No,
Okay.
that's
Which
the,
has-
that's
Am I
the,
right about that? or-
Chris,
The other one, the chimney. You
That
see the
one is-
left, that's the toll house.
yeah, the one to the
Oh,
left.
you know,
is
I'm
the toll
sorry, I
house.
got the wrong, yeah, this is why
Right.
I'm an attorney. Hang on a second. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, this is, yeah, and it does have a distinction where the roof ends, very clearly where the toll house ends.
Okay, so it's that one. And then you can't see where that 1870 edition is from here, right? Because it's on the other.
Yeah, let me just see if we can see it
But
from the
it's
rear.
There might be a
shielded.
photograph.
Okay.
The challenge is there were a lot of additions that went backward after that. So if we look at the progression, let me just show you the little blocks again. As you can see, we've got the 1870 edition, and then it goes back further. And then they start attaching pieces to it. But if you look at the location of this, the first section relative to the one section, I think one of these photographs on the side will give you a pretty good idea. Right, and I'm on the rear. Yeah, this is the one where if we had a slightly different angle, I think we would see it better, but unfortunately we don't have that. So this little roof with the chimney, I think, goes a little bit beyond this addition, and that's where the 1860 ends.
Yeah, I mean, the toll house is basically a square.
I think there's another of the original toll houses earlier than this one, which survives, and it's the one right up by the so-called bathtub, the World War monument, where Mercer feeds into Nassau. And it was raised a story. There, Helen Van Cleve's real estate office used to be underneath it. And of course, there's a bridge tender's house a mile away on the road out to the canal.
Yep.
So it is part of our history. It's pretty neat. And I have to say too, I had a one-room school reunion for the Stony Brook School, and that's where I met Della Sweeney Williams, who was, it says farm laborer at one point. Her father worked on the farms there, and she and her 8 siblings and lived in this house and walked to school every morning. She wound up to being the head of all of the entire staff at the Nassau Inn. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. And she was one of about a third of the kids at that school were Black kids, from a lot of them from these farms.
I just want to say I attended Stony Brook School in kindergarten. I got bused there. It was
Me
a
too.
wonderful- A wonderful experience.
Me too. Miss Forsyth. Or did you have Mrs. Decker?
I believe I had Miss Forsyth.
Yep.
Yep.
You're on mute.
Thank you. Question on the plan. I'm familiar with this house when the Quaker meeting approached the Princeton Battlefield Society to see if the Battlefield Society would take it over and turn it into a visitor center. It wasn't appropriate for that use for the Battlefield Society, but I've been in the house. And I'm also very sensitive to its location, close to the road, and especially in the floodplain. So I feel your pain. Is the plan then to demolish the rest of the house and then move this back some number of feet? I guess it's going to be about 30 or 40 feet, and then build a new house on the back of this, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Are you going to get enough elevation by doing so to avoid further flooding, or will there be remediation further in the construction of the foundation so to overcome that?
It's higher.
My
is hard.
understanding from our engineer, and Max can speak more in depth on this, is that it does, the place where we're proposing to put this house has sufficient elevation. And this is an elevation survey.
Yes.
So that's a reason, other than trying to nestle it as much as possible in the middle of the site, the reason is to try to get it above the flood plain.
76. Yeah, well, I'm sure the
That's
engineer.
going to be one of my questions too. I don't remember that site having that much grade increase, but I'm
No,
not the engineers either. Yeah.
I see the site plan runs from 73 feet along the road to about 76 feet. So it's about a 3-foot elevation to where the house is going to be located. A 3-foot elevation. Maybe that doesn't, but duly noted.
Did we see elevations again?
Yeah,
For the
they're-
proposed?
They're on this plan.
They're on the map right in front of us here.
Yeah. So this line, I'm doing this with my hand, sorry. This dark line where the existing structure is, you can see a dark line. That is the flood line. So the house is
Right.
partially in the
Yeah,
floodplain.
Mhm.
And then the proposal is to move it up to 76 feet. And I don't know, Max, was there going to be further elevation that you were going to propose?
I think we're about 4 feet out of the ground. So we'd be
Yeah.
not only upgrade, but we'd be out of the ground further.
My further question is, did the flood, how badly was the toll house damaged by the flood? If at all?
Annarella,
Other-
we have a structural report, but Annarella, you can comment on that.
Sure. Well, it's at least up until like it was over 2 feet into the first living quarter, so that was pretty bad.
Oh,
And of course, bad enough where I was evacuated and my
Right.
children and I had to still be at a long-term rental. Yeah, just very sad. I mean, I love that house.
That
So
and
the
frightening.
question I'm driving at is then, is this toll house in sufficient repair to be moved and at a reasonable cost to the tenant? Or is it does have the whole thing have to be completely rebuilt? And I'm sensitive, the finance is not a part of our mandate here, but I cannot but be sensitive to the costs imposed by Mother Nature on this tenant and this property owner, and whether this whether we have to actually balance the history of the unit against the actual cost of repairing this property.
Pretty
Thank you.
straightforward move. I mean, it's moved on the same property. It's one room. The dimensions are minimal. Right? And we're experiencing record floods. These are century events, except
is
they're
a major-
happening every 5 years or less.
It is a major hardship. Yes, thank you for understanding.
Major hardship, that's the point I'm getting at.
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
And really, I just want a safe home for my children and I. Sewage free.
Can I ask the indelicate question? This is really for the commission and others more experienced than I can help answer this. Does this maneuver, which is trying hard to preserve the history of the toll house, sufficiently do it by incorporating it into the new house? Is this worth the candle, as it were?
Well, I don't see where the applicant has been asking that. The applicant is asking, can they take part of this house and add it to what looks like a very wonderful new house? I haven't heard that question. It seems the question is, would we be all right with them picking it up and moving it to this new location and adding a house to it?
Well, I can address that, and I just put up here the conclusion of the structural engineer in terms of the condition of the house is significantly damaged. We've been in conversation with members of the staff for some time on this. Our first proposal was that this house is not salvageable. And the preference would be to build a new house and to demolish what was there, for the reasons, that we've provided in terms of the flooding. And it's really in a location that it can't safely stay, and it could stay, with the floodgates, but it would just be kind of sitting there and not being used. So that did not seem like a logical option, nor does moving it somewhere else on the property and then building another structure. So that's when we came up with, if we are not in a position to demolish the entire structure, we would try to incorporate it into the new house. If we didn't have to do that, that would certainly, and I say we, I should say, if Annarella didn't have to do that, then that would certainly be something that we would strongly consider and would be preferable. So that would be something we'd like to hear the commission's opinion on.
Well, the two Haydens have been in the structure most recently, and I guess would know inside and out what interesting fabric is still there, what proportions, what sense of history or just extraordinary interest keeping it and adding it to another building provides. Maybe Max wants to comment.
The original piece has exposed rafters. I can't remember, quite frankly, if they were plastered over at one point and then exposed later. The flooring has been covered over with 2¼ inch strip oak. The windows appear to be original. The siding appears to be original. There is a staircase in the 1870 edition. It's of an era where its purpose was very functional. So there's not anything extraordinary architecturally about it. It's a vernacular mid 19th century building. The 1948 edition has a nicer front door with side lights, but it's manufactured probably by Morgan and is mass produced.
Right.
So part of the house was used as an office building and has 2x4 surface mounted fluorescent lights in it. You wouldn't walk through this house and in its present state, or right before the flood, it was all painted office white. You wouldn't say, wow, what a charming house. You'd say, oh, it's kind of cool, but kind of quirky. So, our thought was to preserve the most significant part, get it out of the floodplain, and have it be a unique piece of a newer structure.
But I'm going to put forward a consideration. I don't know if this is quite my purview, but I am concerned if the owner of the house is okay with this. She's obviously working with you and Derek Bridger to work a way into this. But if it would be relevant to know whether the insurance is going to cover some of this, or whether this is going to impose an additional hardship on a one-income family and possibly a single mother. And if the tenant wishes to bring that forward, I'd like to hear about that, because I think we have an issue at hand here of an economic impact on a citizen that is unforeseen and could be extraordinary, trying very hard to make this work from a historic point of view. But history really depends also on economic viability. So I just raise that issue to be sensitive to the possibility, and I don't wish to push that issue. I have no idea about the owner's background or whether she cares to relate it, but I do want to be sensitive to that based on what I'm surmising is occurring here.
I appreciate that, Mr. Pyle. And if I may, I actually, since you wanted to know a little bit of the background, I was very fortunate to be able to be given this opportunity to purchase the home. As a political refugee from Cuba, I came when I was 6 years old to this country, and I was so excited to be able to have that opportunity. Sadly, nature had a different thought on it, but yes, I am. I'm a single divorced and it's just myself and the children, and it is an extraordinary hardship. And I'm sorry to say that the insurance is giving me, as expected, a hard time, where it looks like I'll be needing legal representation because they're still not providing even the funds that they provided to the mortgage company. It's a mess. So yes, to be completely frank and honest, and thank you for understanding, ideally, especially because of the condition that it's in, and it was in a poor condition to begin with prior. There were structural concerns, which were even in the reports that I shared, even prior to all the floods, which were several. It wasn't just Ida. There was Henry, and there was a previous one. And actually with Henry, it flooded my basement completely that I needed to get a new everything, boiler and everything down there. So I had to get one that was tankless. They said, oh, if you lift it up and this and everything, it took them like a day to create this. And not even a week later, Ida hit and said, oh, really? We're going to cover it even further. So I just felt like every time I made an improvement, I was like further pushed back 10 steps. So yes, to be honest, because of the condition of it and everything, after all the flooding, I thought it really wasn't even in good shape or condition to even move it. But because of the history of it, and because I understand from our conversations, we were pretty much instructed that we need to move it. I wish the insurance company would pay for it. They're not. They don't even want to give me what's really standard to even correct some of the issues. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yes, ideally it would be best to remove everything and allow me to build a safe home for my children and I above from the waters, flood free, so that this doesn't happen to us again nor anyone else.
So
How old
just
are
to
your-
address, I mean, as Thomas had mentioned, historic preservation cannot take into consider financial situations. That is very clear. And it's not that HPC is not sympathetic, but that is what is required of them for them to be able to make a decision. Now, if for some reason, and I haven't actually looked at the report or read the whole thing back from Grubb and Associates, but if there was something within there that really strongly stated that that they really would question it, I mean, that's something they would consider, but that is different than considering financial hardship.
Would,
So
I would say,
I'd like to go on the record just to ask that as a group, the commission, in an executive session or in a retreat, take up this matter, because it does seem very difficult sometimes when financial interests conflict with our historic interests. And I appreciate there may be a regulation or a law. However, I'm very concerned that hardships are being imposed that can thwart development and protection of history and contradict or conflict, may I say, with economic prospects for owners. So I take Elizabeth's point quite well, and I understand that. This is the second time where this issue's come up, and I've raised a concern like this of finance. I am worried. I am a former banker. I am worried about how much this does cost people from time to time. And I do suppose that we should at least have that in our thoughts as we make a complete decision. But I'll leave it there for now.
if I could just mention one piece of the ordinance, it's what is it, T10B39. Yeah, my eyes are going just late. Demolition or moving of a structure in a historic preservation zoning district shall be approved only if the structure cannot be put to reasonable use and its preservation will impose financial hardship on the applicant. So I know that it's not the primary consideration, but I do think it is a reasonable consideration to take into account in this process.
So Chris, I just want to let you know that that section of the ordinance actually is not valid anymore, because we were actually told by the State Office of Historic Preservation that we cannot take that into consideration. That's the reason.
If I could add one thing, I mean, this is the third case that's come before us. We've had a house across the street on Quaker Road that has had, asked for modifications, which we approved. I think there was a concept review of moving the house where Quaker Road comes into Stockton Street. I wasn't at that meeting, but I gather that the concept was approved to move that house further up. So I'm thinking, sustainability and the fact that we have to take environmental issues into consideration these days is something within our purview. And this is sort of a third variation. I mean, I appreciate the interest in maintaining some historic character here. But I think we have to take definitely into account the fact that we're doing things to Mother Nature that are causing these types of issues to arise much more quickly and in quick succession, or much more quick succession, if that's English, than we've seen in the past. So this is not ideal, but I have to say, I think that just the historical tip of the hat, so to speak, intrigues me, and I think deserves some more consideration, because we're just there's a direct line between these three properties. They're right off the Stony Brook right there. And I'm surprised there's one more house on the other side of Quaker Road. I'm surprised that it's still standing, but and they haven't come before us. But I just think this is something we're going to have to look at, and perhaps bend the rules or look more favorably on creative solutions.
I think there's some other aspects too that I would love to dive into, is like, often you'll find an old farmhouse or something that they'll say, it hasn't had any weather issues because, quote, the old timers knew where to place the house and built it very strongly or whatever. And what I'm trying to make the point of is this house, which I know you love and all that, but it was built as an office. It probably wasn't situated the same way like the old timers would situate the farmhouse. And so, yeah, you're getting walloped because it didn't have that same kind of placement consideration. So I think there's a really big conversation here that preservation across the country has to think about. And so concept review, have we gotten anywhere tonight? And really what you want to know is whether you can move forward with something. But Tom and I are thinking about what are ways that it could be something less and perhaps more affordable and done more quickly. I've got that, the other one on Quaker Road got raised up and work has not continued. And I don't know those neighbors. They're about as new to the neighborhood as you are. And I live near you. I saw this flooding firsthand. It's shocking and horrible. But it's really tough. And I think a lot of things haven't been figured out, yet you're trying to figure out how you live. And we're trying to give you the best information.
It's really important. And the other thing that's underwater is the value of this house from the purchase price. I worry. So there's probably a mortgage on this house.
Right. I'm still paying the mortgage. I'm still paying the mortgage and a rental.
Rental. I mean, this is like a killing. Anyway.
Yep.
Can I get a
And
word
to
in
top it
there?
off, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
Go ahead.
The financial situation, I think, is not as dire as it's being painted. I'm almost certain that the expense of having that house, that section, lifted and relocated on the property will be less than the demolition expenses for the rest of the property. And I point out too that you're removing the garage, which is not an historic structure, and you wouldn't be doing that if there wasn't, if the finances were prohibitive. Yes, we are looking at things for their aesthetics and for their historical value, and that's why we're here. But I think that this is a good plan. I think it honors the history of a building which had a unique role in the development of the byways of our town. I think you're adding another chapter to it. The only comment I'd have about the addition is that I think this was a fairly straightforward building. It didn't have a lot of extreme embellishment. And I think maybe the 2-story porch and a few other things are less true to that. But I'm all in favor of moving it and get the figures. I mean, we've at the Barn Company, we've often found out that it's cheaper to put a new roof on than to have a building demolished. And the price of lumber these days is such that I honestly think you'd be getting 2 rooms for free. And if the insurance agents disagree, I keep saying we should be making sure that there is a precedent for preservation. And I think this is an instance. You could talk to the neighbor who's moving his house up onto the Craig property, the red house at the other end of Quaker Road there. This is not a unique situation. And I applaud you for you and the team you've developed for making this work. I hope you can go forward with it.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, are you all able to go see it? It's unlocked, so you're welcome to go in.
We'd have to go on a couple of groups, just so that we're not, a meeting doesn't break out.
Okay.
We did that across the road.
I won't go in. I already lost a cat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, so seeing everything floating and everything. And also it's just a hazard, honestly.
Yeah.
You have to go in masked.
With the mask, yeah.
It's really a hazard.
Oh,
So I don't recommend really, even just a mask won't do it. Really be prepared when you go in. But that's the reason I mentioned that. And it's the reason I mentioned that is because it's very different, the condition that my home inside was in even prior to the flood, in comparison to some of these other homes that were completely lifted and moved. How should I put it? Basically, it's not in the condition, even in the sections that were not historical, to be saved. It was really in poor shape, which is why I wanted to correct and fix a lot of things within it. But the flooding actually stopped me, which in a way was good, because all of that money I would have poured in to try to correct these things, I'm just going to continue to get flooded there.
So Elizabeth, to kind of bring this to conclusion, is it possible that we can arrange some visits and then invite back for another concept, or what would you how should we proceed?
I mean, if the commission feels that it's beneficial for them to make the site visit, we can absolutely schedule meetings of 3 people or less. 4 people make a quorum, so it has to be less than 4. And if the applicant is open to that, so it would have to either be different times on same day or different time on different days. And if the commission that is beneficial, then we can absolutely schedule that. And then if you'd like for them to come back again, or perhaps for the commission to deliberate as a discussion on their own during one of the meetings, that could also be done.
Alternately, couldn't we just do a subcommittee that could report to the commission? I don't know what's easier.
But it's not an application, it's a concept plan. So concept is non-binding. So, I mean, if people don't want to attend, that's fine. And then people who do can discuss it to everybody when we meet again. So I don't know that it's necessary to have a subcommittee, as much as if people want to go, they can, and those that can't make it, then they don't have to. And then
we did this with Joe across the street.
Yes, but that was a true application.
I think if we set up a couple of days, go ahead.
I just want to ask a personal question. Mr. Valvita, how old are your 2 daughters?
Oh, my son is 10 and my daughter is 9.
Thank you.
They're going to love this.
So I don't know what the commission would like to do.
Yeah, I have a question. Just want to understand a little bit kind of the timing and the objective to some of these different ideas. I think that the purpose of visiting the site, Anarella, would be to hopefully show that it's not reasonably salvageable and not something to preserve. Because, I guess that would be the ideal. The other thing I guess I'm curious about is the plan that we propose today. Does that seem, assuming that the commission decides that the site should be preserved, is that a plan that, generally speaking, seems like a good plan that could be supported?
So that's something that we can ask the commission now, correct, David? I mean, how they feel,
Oh, yeah.
so that
Yeah.
the applicant can get feedback if they would like to proceed with moving the original section of the structure upland and adding on to, which is a concept that they presented to you. How does the commission feel about that?
Yeah, and
And
can
then
we
that
switch so we can see everybody's faces again?
Put it on gallery. Let's go on the top of your screen. You should be able to
It's
view.
me that's got it. Okay, hold on.
Got two Elizabeth Kims, apparently.
Hollywood Squares now.
There we go.
That better?
Who would like to start talking about their thoughts that way?
Well, I think that Elric and I agree with Elric. I'm okay with the plan.
So am I. I'm okay with the plan. I mean, I don't think I would have ever thought about the financial side of it because, as Elric pointed out, if they were moving the garage, which is not historic, then finances wouldn't seem like it's the number one issue. So I would support moving it.
Thank you. So I have a question based on what you said. I'm sorry. I'm just for clarification. Then would I be able to leave the garage there to avoid having to spend funds on demolishing it?
I think that if it's in poor condition, it'll eventually get
Disintegrate.
condemned by the building department because it'll be a safety issue. I mean, I don't know what the condition is, but the reason that you don't want to move it is because you don't want to spend the cost of moving it, or that you feel that.
Well, cost is the major factor. I mean, if it wouldn't look as nice, ideally, I wish, it wasn't there, but if I'm able to leave it and that leaves me with less money to spend, that's more beneficial to me, honestly. And I just thought of that. I'm sorry. I just thought of that only because someone mentioned about the funds and demolishing everything. And obviously that would cost less if I just leave it there, but that wouldn't look very nice.
But
Have you had estimates yet from a house mover?
yes, we've gotten 2 estimates, but that was not just for the one piece. And the incremental cost of Anarella of demolishing the garage really won't be that much.
No.
Given how
Four
much more
walls
we
and a
have
roof.
to take down. So, I mean,
Well,
that's.
I also want to endorse Elric and Roger's point. Elric obviously has made some excellent points here, and I do think that as a plan, as it's presented to us, it looks good to me personally. I defer to those who have more experience, but I'm not insensitive, as I think we all must be, whatever the state SHPO tells us, to the economic reality here of a single mother with 2 young children underwater and in renting and mortgaging and having to save for college. So let's not forget that, please.
Well, I think
Thank
we're all
you.
grateful for your bringing this to, I mean, we learn, it's like, if you become a teacher by your pupils, it'll be taught. We on the commission learn from these situations, and I won't say we feel your pain, but I think we recognize your situation pretty well now after this discussion, and thank you for letting us be part, try to be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, and thanks. But also just doing the basic math, I think you have a majority of the people in this meeting saying we're okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes.
I see Mr. Newland has his hand up. I'm not sure if he wants to.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think the applicant, and I congratulate you, I think is admirable that you want to preserve the history of the building. My only question and maybe / concern is, I live in an historic district, Princeton's 20th Historic District. And I remember when on Quarry Street, when Uncle Joe Tadlock's house was sold, the question was, does it have structural integrity? And it ended up staying in the same footprint. And the applicant used the footprint that was already there. But again, the question was structural integrity. And during this discussion, I've heard that you have numbers for moving the house. But my question, and I'm wondering not so much about the economics and being a single parent, but have you had a structural engineer look at the house? Because it seems to me that we all participate on this board, and me as a liaison, because we want to preserve history. But my question is the structure worth preserving?
Yes, exactly.
You're going to be moving this structure away from the road, so it looks like it's going to be in the middle of your footprint of your lot, and it may not be as visible as it is now. But again, the overriding instruction in my mind, the overriding concern or issue, is it worth saving? And I admire you for coming, because this is a historic preservation. You have an historic piece of property and an historic home, so you come here. But the real question is, will it withstand the move? And does it have enough structural integrity to move and be part of something different, or should you just knock it down? And I think that's what you really want to find out before you come back and spend a lot of time on moving and what it's going to be. Should the house be saved? Even if it is historic, is it worthy with regard to a structural integrity of making that move and being saved at any cost?
That's an excellent point. I don't know if you want to add something, Mr. Costa, but I did have a private structural engineer see the home.
Yeah, no, I had that one, at least one page of it up a moment ago. Let me just pull this up real quick.
And also another engineer is coming as well. Because of the insurance matter.
Right.
And the other issue was with only a 3-foot elevation, are you going to have flooding issues again?
They're raising the foundation level too, Leighton.
Okay.
Right. So I think you can see this, but there's extensive termite damage, there's extensive mold damage. There are deficiencies due to age, poor construction, lack of maintenance. The foundation walls are in poor condition due to loss of mortar and lack of cement parging on the exterior and interior to prevent water infiltration, which contributes to lateral deflection. This is a structurally unsound condition that would be difficult and costly to repair. There is a pretty extensive litany of structural issues with this property.
Right, but I don't know that Max or the engineer would even be talking about trying to move it if it didn't have some viability.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. If you all feel that there is so much structural damage, why did you present to the Historic Preservation Commission with a proposal to move it?
That's a good question. And honestly, because I felt that's what I had to do. I felt, well, I do love the history of it. At the same time, I was informed that I pretty much had no choice, that I have to move it. So I was trying to do the best
You didn't
that I
know your
could.
options. Yeah, you didn't have, nobody gave you options pretty much, I guess.
Well, no, certainly the options were discussed, but the view based on the reports was that it was going to be an uphill battle to just demolish.
And to put, not to curtail the discussion, but I think when you all come out, we'll all be more informed by the building. And some of the earlier moves were to move the whole structure, which has been peggily together. If we're moving one piece, we may have more of a chance of being able to do that more cleanly.
Makes sense.
But I think the proof is in the pudding of coming out and taking a look at it.
And
May we
definitely
res-
you can,
Sign me up.
I'll participate unless there are others who would like to. May we members see copies of the report that was mentioned, that Mr. Hayden has mentioned?
Absolutely.
our
That
package, isn't it?
was with the packet, both the structural report and the historic
All right.
report. That
My
was,
bad. I
well,
don't have
no,
my
it's not
hands
your
on
bad because it was submitted and there was some mix up and it didn't, I'm sure it didn't get to any of you, if at all, in more than a few days ago. So we'll make
Right.
sure that it gets everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about this, to expedite it, instead of a subcommittee, why don't we have Elizabeth and the owner talk about two dates a couple of times. Either we get there or we don't, and that becomes the basis of what we have to work with. And I guess
that's a great idea. And actually, I could make it even easier for you. I won't enter. It's unsafe. There's an X mark right on the door. You can't miss where you enter. It's unlocked and you're welcome to go in and out as many times and at any day or time that you would like.
thank you. Frida?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you raised your hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waving to somebody. People are leaving for the day and waving to me. I'm sorry.
And your building may be torn down. So.
I
long
know,
day.
exactly. With me sitting in it.
Oh, Annarella, are you saying that the property is unlocked?
Correct. The door's closed, but it's unlocked. Yeah, that's right.
Well, then I would
I think-
suggest for safety, we go in pairs.
Yes,
Somebody
and I
find
think
somebody to
that,
go with.
and I think that we should let Annarella know also what days
Yes.
we are going to be there just for her information.
Oh, no worries.
How do we let her
Sure,
know?
sure.
No, not necessarily that you want to be there, but just so you know that someone has been to your
Right.
property. Okay, so what I'll do is, why don't I pick a few days, unless you want to do it now, and people can sign up for what day and time they want to go.
Okay.
Good.
well,
Do take care
Sure.
to keeping that unlocked. I'm worried about high schoolers or whatever getting in there and smoking dope or whatever when they shouldn't be in there. So
Oh,
you might want to think about
Mr.
securing. the front.
Pyle, if you see it, just nobody's gonna want to go in there. Just
will.
when you start to walk in, you're like, whoa, that'll scare anybody.
All right, well, just saying.
You probably
But
should.
thank you.
You should secure it so that it's
Yeah.
from a legal perspective.
Okay, no, you're okay. Thank you.
So what I'll do, I will contact Chris or Annarella, or I can copy both of you and let you know what date and
That's perfect.
times that we have scheduled for the commission members. David Shore, afterwards, are you thinking that the commission would meet again to discuss it at the next monthly meeting, or what, or?
I think we
would you
have to. I think
prefer-
we have to have it on our agenda for next month if we can, Elizabeth, and just
Okay.
follow up so that everyone can keep working. I mean, a lot of effort was brought into what we saw today. And, we came up with more questions and some really good observations, and it deserves to be revisited, in my opinion.
Okay, very good. All right.
Thank you for coming in.
Very much.
Thank you all. Thank you so very much.
And
Thank you,
Elizabeth, when I say all of
Yeah.
us who see these historic buildings get flooded, it's heart wrenching.
Oh,
We
it's
get it.
heartbreaking.
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thanks,
Well,
Have
everyone.
a
night.
great evening. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
So is Julie coming back in?
Yes, I promoted her back. Hi, Julie.
Hi there.
Good thing you came back. I would have closed the meeting.
Well, you know what? I mean, we have, let's see,
That was my
on
job.
our agenda, we have a discussion of the Witherspoon Street improvements. And I'm thinking that we don't have, no, we can't do that.
It's been 4
So-
hours.
Yeah.
All right. The only
exactly.
reason that I thought that would be good is because we've got that neighborhood meeting that's gonna be, Leighton, what date is that? At the end of August, right? And so if the
August
HB
27th.
August 27th.
But did Jim ever say if they're gonna do renderings or anything? I
Yes,
mean, I
yes.
never heard.
He's gonna have someone from, he's gonna have the
Yes.
Arts Council.
He sent me, Jim sent me today a preliminary rendering to see if it was okay, and it looked good. It's good enough to give people the option. He sent me a rendering of the 8x8 pavers surrounding the God, I'm so tired. Hillier sidewalk.
Yeah.
And it looked pretty good. So I asked him to have phase one rendered. And I was planning, and Leighton, I didn't tell you this, but you and I had talked about some other options, which I had started drawing out real quickly. So that would be my gift to the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood. So we can come up with those new unique looks and then put it all together for the 27th.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
So
Excuse me,
Jack-
we're talking about phase two. Is this from Paul Robeson Place North?
Yes.
Yes. The Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
Some of us
Frida-
were at, Bob Hillier gave a presentation a week or so ago. Just kind of a spitball what his vision of the streetscape that he owns is going to be. And basically he's saving all the facades and putting apartments behind them. And one of the buildings is going to be called the Satterfield.
Wow, that's
So
so
it-
great.
It was kind of cool. I mean, he had some preliminary drawings, but very, very general.
We're really only talking about the sidewalk. Did he mention that?
No.
No,
I had
No.
to leave early, so
Yeah,
okay,
Elizabeth and I were there.
yeah, so it's a side, so what the phase two is gonna be, and also I think that we have to get a determination, because right now, phase one ends at Green Street. So if there's gonna be change where it's gonna be starting at Paul Robeson, then I think that that has to be coordinated with engineering, and they have to buy into that.
oh, it ends at Green Street, huh?
Phase one ends at Green Street and phase two starts at Green Street, yes.
Okay.
Complicates things.
And where does the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood begin?
At Wiggins and Green Street, and sorry, Wiggins and Paul Robeson, that's where, at that,
Okay, yeah, I would think they would have to change it because it doesn't make any sense, all this work.
Starting at the Arts Council.
To have
Right.
to it, you know, I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
right.
The Arts Council is
So-
the beginning of the historic part of Witherspoon Street.
Right.
And in my
Yeah.
mind, that's where the sidewalk application
Absolutely,
should
yeah.
begin.
Right,
But
Yeah.
we will also be talking about, I think, possibility lighting and railing if that's
Yeah.
ready to be discussed.
well, we have to, because that's the last day. So we have to talk about lighting and railing, and I think that the engineer was thinking that they would carry what they have down on phase one, but I don't think that that would work well. I think that there needs to be something a little bit more, maybe residential looking, a little bit streamlined. That's pretty heavy. I mean, that's kind of like downtown. And I don't know that that's going to be the style that's going to be appropriate for the Witherspoon Jackson Historic District. But that's something that I think the subcommittee wants to look into. But hopefully engineering will give something for you to use as a springboard, you know, okay, this is what they're recommending, but you can say, well, how about these other options? You know, it's kind of a place, like a place to start. Same
So
thing with the,
I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
same thing with the railing. There's one section where there's a double sidewalk.
Mhm. What I was gonna say was, who's going to tell Jim about starting it at Paul Robeson? Because this entire time I thought they were ending at Paul Robeson.
No, because remember we had that bus stop that was at Green Street. That was part of phase one.
You're right,
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But the site.
Leighton will talk to Jim.
Okay,
Speaking of Robeson and the Art Center, the little subcommittee was tasked to get an update from Adam Welch as to what they're doing for the Robeson celebration. We've had an email correspondence about that, and Adam says, we're definitely gonna do something, we don't know what. So he invited me to be in touch with him, and I might suggest that Roger, I, and Shirley, if we're all free, go pay a visit or get on the phone with Adam and flesh out what he would like to do so that we, as the HPC, might be of all possible support. So that's all I've got for you on that particular issue, but it's we're inching it along.
Oh, good.
Thank
Good.
Yeah.
All right, well, the only last thing here is we have public comment. Is there anyone in the public that has their hand up or wants to comment on anything?
No, we only have one person, and we'll just give that person an opportunity to raise their hand if they'd like to speak. Otherwise, I think that hopefully we'll be able, Frida, if you get anything from Jim, just share it with everyone so they can see it, and maybe they can.
It was only preliminary. He just wanted to see if he was going in the right direction, and I said yes. And it was
Okay.
during a meeting this evening, so it's not, I haven't been sitting on it for days or anything.
Okay, I think that he told me that Adam was doing it because they had
Yeah.
offered to do it, so that was good.
Adam did it, yeah.
I see Michael Floyd. Hi, Michael.
Hi, I'll just say I don't really want to speak, not anymore. You know, I had an interest.
That's right.
But you seem to not let the public speak on applications, so I was going to wait till public comment, and then I had questions for Ed, and you dismissed Ed, so I'm fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. This was
That's
like
okay if you don't
which-
take public.
no, we usually
take
do.
public
I'm
comment.
usually better about it. Which one was it? 195?
Well, one was Lee Avenue and one was 195.
Okay,
And 195 is more going to be questions for Ed. But, you know, you didn't ask if there were anybody in the public, and I
I'm
respected
sorry.
that, so.
oh, sorry. Usually I do, and I completely blew that one. So I'm so sorry. Because I do usually, I mean, you know,
Yes.
we had
Yeah.
like 5 applications today, so it's a
Yeah,
lot.
you know, so fine. I had some questions about overlay zones. I'm not an
Oh.
expert. I know some, but,
There you go.
Yeah, and
but fine.
that's definitely something we aren't experts either, and that's gonna be a planning board kind of topic. And although, yeah, maybe, anyway, I apologize because that was really my mistake. So thanks for
Okay.
pointing that out. We'll get it right next time.
But the other cases were interesting too, and
Okay,
so.
good.
Thank you for
Fine.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
So
Uh,
I think that's it. If anyone wants to make a motion to adjourn, I think we're done. All right.
So moved.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Really,
discussion.
really appreciate
See you
it.
all. Can't eat
Yeah.
outside tonight. It's already
Great.
dark.
Yeah,
Frida,
right.
I will-
It's dark. All right.
Frida, I
thank
will call you before we, we'll go to Jim Purcell together.
Yes, great.
Okay.
Okay. Good
Okay.
night, everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Good night. Good night. Thank you.
Hey, Albert, did you have any comments? How come there's 2 of me? Do you have any?
Plenty. I had
Do you have-
plenty of comments, but let's have a phone call about this. It's 8 o'clock.
Okay, I'm gonna call you when on my way home.
Oh, not tonight.
Oh, not tonight,
Talk to you tomorrow.
tomorrow. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
No, I was hoping you'd give some information on the Witherspoon Street sidewalk. That's why, because I know that you were thinking
I know,
about
but it's
breaking
just,
something too late.
I get up too early to stay up this late.
I
Okay.
know, it's a late
to you
meeting. I'll
tomorrow.
talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.